It is 3 in the morning. The world outside is still, wrapped in a blanket of darkness and quiet. But inside, a storm rages. Your eyes are open, staring into the blackness of the room, yet seeing only the frantic projections of your own mind. A reel of yesterday's mistakes plays on a loop, followed by a detailed preview of tomorrow's anxieties. Worries about work, about relationships, about money, chase each other in a relentless circle. Each thought feels urgent, essential, true. You feel trapped, a prisoner in a cell with no bars, held captive by the incessant chatter of a voice that sounds exactly like you. This is a uniquely modern form of suffering. We live in a world of external noise, of constant notifications and endless demands on our attention. But the loudest, most persistent noise is the one that follows us into the silence of the night. It is the noise of our own unobserved mind. We have come to believe that we are this voice, the inner critic, the anxious planner, the regretful narrator of our past. We have collapsed our entire sense of self into this stream of thinking. The statement, I think, has become "I am my thoughts." This fundamental misunderstanding, this case of mistaken identity, is the deep, hidden root of so much of our daily struggle, our stress, our feeling of being perpetually overwhelmed. It is the source of the quiet desperation that hums just beneath the surface of our busy lives. But what if this core assumption is wrong? What if it is possible to find a space of peace, right in the midst of this mental chaos? Consider this question gently. If you are the one who is aware of these thoughts, how can you be the thoughts themselves? If you can hear the voice of anxiety in your head, who exactly is the one listening? Zen Buddhism does not offer a simple answer to be believed, but rather a path to be walked. It offers a way to directly experience the truth for yourself. It suggests that you are not the storm, nor the frantic voice narrating it. You are the sky, the vast, silent, and ever-present awareness in which the storm of thought appears. This journey is not about waging a war against your mind or struggling to silence your thoughts. It is about something far more subtle and far more liberating. It is about changing your relationship with your thoughts, and in doing so, discovering the profound freedom and peace that has been here all along, waiting patiently just behind the noise. We speak of freedom, we build societies in its name, and we yearn for it in our hearts. Yet many of us live our days in a state of confinement. This is not a prison of steel and stone, but one far more subtle and pervasive. It is the invisible prison of the mind. Its walls are built from our own thoughts, its bars are forged from our beliefs, and its warden is the unexamined voice in our own head. We are both the prisoner and the guard, locked in a cell of our own making, often without ever realizing the door has been open all along. To understand this prison, we must first meet its primary architect, what ancient Buddhist teachings call the monkey mind. Imagine a wild monkey in a vast forest, drunk on fermented fruit and stung by a scorpion. It cannot stay still. It shrieks and leaps from one branch to another, never resting, never at peace. It scrambles up a tree of past regret, chattering about what should have been, then flings itself across to a vine of future anxiety, screeching about what might go wrong. It is restless, chaotic, and utterly captivated by its own drama. This is a powerful, if unflattering, metaphor for the untrained human mind. Our attention rarely stays where we place it. We sit down to read a book, and the mind wanders to an unpaid bill. We try to listen to a loved one, and the mind is already rehearsing our response. We lie down to sleep, and the mind decides it's the perfect time to host a festival of our greatest fears and embarrassments. This constant, frantic movement is not a personal failing. It is the default state of a mind that has not been shown another way to be. It seeks stimulation. It reacts to impulses and it generates an endless internal monologue, a stream of consciousness that becomes the soundtrack to our entire existence. The real trouble begins not with the monkey's chatter, but with our belief in it. This is the subtle process of identification. It begins when a thought, a fleeting, insubstantial wisp of mental energy, arises. Let's say the thought is, I might make a mistake in this presentation. This is simply a thought, a possibility. It is not a fact. But the monkey mind grabs it. It repeats it. It elaborates on it. If I make a mistake, my boss will be angry. If my boss is angry, I might lose my job. If I lose my job, I won't be able to pay my rent. I will be a failure. A single, harmless thought has now been woven into a terrifying narrative. The next step is the most crucial and the most treacherous. We take that narrative and we make it our identity. The thought is no longer just a thought. It becomes, I am an anxious person, or I am not good enough, or I am a failure. We stop seeing thoughts as transient events passing through our awareness and start seeing them as accurate descriptions of who we are. We have fused our sense of self to the random firings of our own neurons. This is the moment the prison door clicks shut. When we believe I am an anxious person, we then filter all of our experiences through that belief. We look for evidence to confirm it, and we ignore evidence that contradicts it. The identity becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This process creates powerful, automatic loops in our consciousness. Think of a stream of water flowing down a mountainside. At first, it spreads out, finding many paths, but over time, it begins to carve a small channel. With each rainfall, that channel gets deeper and wider. Eventually, it becomes a vast canyon, and now all the water is drawn into it irresistibly. Our thought patterns work in precisely the same way. The first time you have a worry and you follow it, you are carving a tiny neural pathway. The 10th time, the pathway is more established. The 1000th time, it has become a canyon. This is why certain negative states feel so inescapable. A mind accustomed to worry will find things to worry about, even when life is calm. A mind trained in self-criticism will find flaws even in victory. These loops become our default settings. They run on autopilot, a background program humming constantly, draining our energy and coloring our entire perception of reality. We wake up in the morning and the program boots up. The anxiety loop, the sadness loop, the anger loop. We are no longer consciously choosing our thoughts. We are simply experiencing the relentless momentum of old habits of mind. We are living inside the canyon, unaware that a whole mountainside of other possibilities exists just outside of it. The cost of living this way is immense. It is a slow, quiet erosion of our vitality. There is the exhaustion. Maintaining this internal chatter, fighting imaginary battles, and running from phantom threats is profoundly tiring. We feel drained without having done anything because our mental energy is being consumed by this ceaseless, unproductive activity. Then there is the disconnection from life itself. When we are lost in thought, we are not truly here. We eat a meal, but we do not taste it because we are thinking about work. We play with our children, but we do not see the light in their eyes because we are replaying an argument from yesterday. We walk in nature, but we do not feel the sun on our skin because we are consumed by plans for the future. Life becomes something we think about rather than something we experience. The richness, the texture, the simple, profound beauty of the present moment is lost, veiled by the constant fog of our thinking. The greatest cost, perhaps, is the loss of peace. We seek it in vacations, in entertainment, in possessions, but it remains elusive because we carry the source of our disquiet with us everywhere we go. We carry the prison inside us. There is an ancient story that perfectly illustrates this human predicament and points toward the possibility of a different way. A man is walking through the wilderness when he hears a ferocious roar. He turns to see a massive, hungry tiger charging straight for him. In a panic, he runs as fast as he can, the tiger's hot breath close behind. He comes to the edge of a great cliff. With no other choice, he grabs hold of a thick vine hanging over the edge and begins to lower himself down. As he hangs there, suspended between the world above and the abyss below, he looks up. The tiger is still there, sniffing at the edge of the cliff, waiting. He looks down into the chasm. It is dark, bottomless, and terrifying. His situation is precarious. His life is hanging by a thread. Then he notices something else. 2 small mice, one white and one black, have scurried out of a crevice in the cliff face and have begun to gnaw on the very vine he is clinging to. He watches as, bite by bite, they chew through the strands. He knows his time is short. The past, a ravenous tiger, will not let him go back. The future, a dark abyss, offers no certainty. And the present, the vine of life itself, is being eaten away by the relentless passage of day and night, the white mouse and the black mouse. It is a moment of total, absolute crisis. And then, out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. Growing from the cliff face, just within his reach, is a single, wild strawberry. It is plump, red, and perfect. He looks up at the tiger. He looks down at the abyss. He looks at the mice gnawing on his vine. Then, with his free hand, he gently plucks the strawberry, brings it to his lips, and eats it. And it is the most delicious thing he has ever tasted. This story is not about giving up. It is not about ignoring danger. It is a profound teaching about the nature of reality and the location of freedom. The tiger is the past that pursues us, our regrets, our traumas, our histories. The abyss is the future that we fear, the great unknown. The vine is our fragile, temporary life, and the mice are time, which is always consuming it. This is the prison. We are suspended, seemingly trapped by the unchangeable past and the uncertain future. We spend all of our energy looking up at the tiger or down into the chasm, but the strawberry is the present moment. It is this very instant. It is the feeling of the air in your lungs, the sensation of your feet on the ground, the sound of these words. It is always here, always available, no matter how great the perceived danger, no matter how relentless the past or how terrifying the future. The man in the story did not defeat the tiger or fill the abyss. He did something far more radical. He shifted his attention. He chose to fully inhabit the only moment he was actually alive, this one. And in that moment, he found not terror, but sweetness. He found life. Understanding the nature of this invisible prison is the first essential step. Seeing the monkey mind in action, recognizing our habit of identifying with its chatter, and feeling the cost of its automatic loops, this is how we begin to awaken. The parable of the strawberry gives us a clue. It shows us that freedom is not found by changing the external circumstances, by getting rid of the tiger or the mice. It is found in a radical shift of inner posture. It is found in the ability to turn our attention away from the dramas of the mind and toward the simple, tangible reality of the now. The walls of our prison are woven from thought. The lock on the door is our belief in them. But what if we had a tool, an anchor, something as real and as present as that strawberry, which could help us disengage from the struggle and return to the vibrant aliveness of the present? We do. It is something we carry with us every second of every day. It is the gentle, rhythmic, and life-sustaining reality of the breath. Having recognized the existence of the mind's invisible prison, and having glimpsed the possibility of freedom in the simple sweetness of a strawberry, we are left with a critical question. How do we find our way to that strawberry in the midst of our own tigers and chasms? How do we access the peace of the present moment when the mind is pulling us so violently into the past and future? The answer is not found in a complex philosophy or a secret technique. It is found in something you are already doing. It has been with you from the moment of your birth and will be with you until your final moment. It is the breath. We so often overlook its power precisely because of its constancy. It is the humble, silent rhythm of life, the background music to our existence. Yet, in Zen practice, this simple, biological process is revered as the golden thread that can lead us out of the labyrinth of our thinking and back into the vibrant reality of the now. It is the most powerful and accessible anchor we possess. So, why the breath? Why not a mantra, a visualization, or a philosophical concept? Thoughts, by their very nature, are time travelers. They can leap back 20 years to a painful memory or rocket forward 10 years to a fearful projection in the blink of an eye. The body, too, can be a vessel for time, holding the tensions of past traumas and the anxieties of future events in its very fibers. But the breath has a unique and sacred quality. It can only exist in the present tense. You cannot take a breath that is in the past. You cannot exhale a breath that is in the future. The physical, sensory experience of breathing is happening, and can only ever happen right now. It is a direct, undeniable, and constantly available portal to the present moment. Therefore, when we consciously place our attention on the raw sensation of breathing, we are by definition pulling our awareness out of the imaginary worlds of past and future and anchoring it firmly in the reality of the present. It is a simple, elegant, and foolproof method for returning home to the only moment where life is actually happening. Furthermore, the breath serves as a profound bridge, connecting realms of our being that often feel disconnected. It connects the mind and the body. It links the intangible world of thought and emotion with the tangible world of physical sensation. Think of it this way. Your breathing is typically an unconscious, automatic process, managed by the ancient, involuntary parts of your brain. Yet, you can also take conscious control of it at any time. You can hold your breath, you can breathe deeper, you can breathe faster. This unique position, straddling the conscious and unconscious, makes it a powerful intermediary. When your mind is agitated and lost in anxious thought, your breathing will almost certainly be shallow, rapid, and erratic. The state of the mind is reflected directly in the rhythm of the body. The reverse, however, is also true. By consciously bringing a gentle, steady attention to the breath, we can soothe the body, and in so doing, we send a message of safety and calm back to the mind. We use the tangible to influence the intangible. We ground the flighty, conceptualizing mind in the solid, undeniable reality of the physical body, and the breath is the point of contact, the sacred junction where mind and body meet. Let us now turn from theory to practice. The instructions are simple, but their power lies in their repetition and the gentle attitude with which you approach them. Find a place where you can sit for a few minutes without being disturbed. You can sit on a cushion, on the floor, or in a chair. The most important thing is that your back is relatively straight, not in a rigid, military way, but in a dignified posture that encourages alertness. Slouching invites sleepiness. Rigidity invites tension. Find the middle way. Allow your hands to rest comfortably in your lap. You can let your eyes gently close, or if you prefer, you can leave them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze directed towards the floor a few feet in front of you. Now, bring your attention to the fact that you are breathing. There is no need to change your breath in any way. Do not try to make it deeper or slower or more spiritual. Your only task is to feel it exactly as it is, Let the body breathe itself. Your job is simply to watch. To help focus your attention, you might choose one specific spot in the body where the sensation of the breath is most vivid for you. For some, this is the tip of the nostrils. You can feel the subtle coolness of the air as it enters, and the slight warmth as it leaves. For others, the primary sensation is in the chest, the feeling of a gentle expansion on the in-breath and a subtle deflation on the out-breath. For many, the most grounding sensation is in the abdomen, feeling the belly rise with the inhalation and fall with the exhalation. Choose one of these spots to be your anchor point. Rest your full attention there. Feel the raw sensations. When the breath comes in, know that it is coming in. When the breath goes out, know that it is going out. That is all. Now, sooner or later, and probably sooner, your mind will wander. A thought will arise. You will start planning your dinner, or replaying a conversation, or worrying about a task. You will forget the breath entirely. This is not a mistake. This is not a failure. This is the moment the real practice begins. The moment you realize your mind has wandered is a moment of mindfulness. In that moment, your only task is to gently acknowledge where the mind has gone, without any judgment or criticism, and then, with infinite kindness, guide your attention back to your anchor point, back to the feeling of the breath. If you have to do this 10 times, you do it 10 times. If you have to do it 1,000 times, you do it 1,000 times. Each return is a victory. Each return is a strengthening of the muscle of attention. It is vital here to understand the difference between feeling the breath and thinking about the breath. Thinking about the breath is just another thought. It is the mind acting as a commentator. That was a good breath. Oh, that one was too shallow. I'm not very good at this. Am I feeling calm yet? My nose itches. This is still the monkey mind, just chattering about a new topic. Feeling the breath is different. It is a direct, non-conceptual, sensory experience. It is pre-thought. It is the raw data of coolness, warmth, movement, pressure. It is the difference between reading a menu and tasting the food. The practice is to stay with the tasting, the direct feeling, as much as you can. When the commentary starts, and it will, simply notice it as more thought, and gently return to the raw sensation of the physical breath. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh told a simple story about washing the dishes. He said that while you are washing the dishes, you should only be washing the dishes. This means you should be completely aware of the fact that you are standing there, washing them. The warmth of the water, the smoothness of the plates, the scent of the soap. If, while washing the dishes, you are thinking about the cup of tea you will drink afterwards, or the dessert you will enjoy, then you are not really alive during the time you are washing the dishes. You are rushing through the present to get to a future that, when it arrives, you will likely rush through as well. If you cannot wash the dishes in mindfulness, you will also not be able to drink your tea in mindfulness. While drinking the tea, you will be thinking about what's next, and the richness of that moment will be lost. Your whole life could pass by in this state of perpetual anticipation. This story is a perfect metaphor for our practice with the breath. To follow the breath is to just wash the dishes. Just be with this one inhalation. Just be with this one exhalation. If your mind is thinking, when will this meditation be over so I can feel peaceful? You are not with the breath. You are trying to get to a future cup of tea. The peace you seek is not in the future. It is available only in the quality of attention you bring to this present moment, to this one breath. Each breath is a dish to be washed with your full being. Through this simple, repetitive act of returning to the present moment, something extraordinary begins to happen. It is not always dramatic. It is often a very subtle shift. A space begins to open up. A tiny gap appears between the restless thoughts of the mind and the part of you that is aware of those thoughts. With each gentle return from a thought to the breath, You are exercising a choice. You are reinforcing the identity of the one who chooses, rather than the thought that is being chosen. You are moving from being a character lost in the drama of a film to being the one sitting in the audience, watching the film unfold on the screen. This space, this emerging awareness, is the beginning of true inner freedom. It is the realization, felt in the body and not just understood in the head, that you are not the voice that speaks, but the silence that listens. We have now found our anchor. We have learned how to return to the present. The next step on our journey is to explore the nature of this silent listener, this vast, open awareness that the breath has allowed us to discover. The simple act of returning your attention to the breath, again and again, does more than just calm the nervous system. It performs a quiet miracle. It creates space, where before there was a fusion, a complete identification between you and your thoughts. Now there is a subtle gap. In this gap, a new kind of knowing can dawn. It is the beginning of the discovery that you are not the incessant voice in your head, but the silent presence that hears it. This is perhaps the most liberating realization one can have, and it is best understood through a simple, powerful metaphor that lies at the heart of Zen teaching. You are not the clouds, you are the sky. Imagine for a moment the sky. Its very nature is vastness, openness, and an unshakable peace. Now, think of the clouds. They are the contents of the sky. They are transient, ever-changing, and diverse. Some clouds are dark and heavy, pregnant with rain and thunder. They rumble and flash, creating a dramatic, intimidating spectacle. These are like our thoughts of anger, fear, grief, and despair. They can feel all-consuming, blotting out the light and convincing us that the storm is the only reality. Other clouds are light, white, and wispy, drifting lazily across the horizon. These are our fleeting, happy thoughts, our pleasant daydreams, our gentle memories. They are beautiful, but they never stay for long. And then there are the vast stretches of gray, formless clouds that create a dull, overcast day. These are like our states of boredom, low-grade anxiety, or mild melancholy. Not a dramatic storm, but a persistent dreariness that saps the world of its color. For most of our lives, we live with a mistaken identity. We believe we are the clouds. When a dark cloud of anger appears, we say, "I am angry." We become the storm. Our entire being contracts around the energy of that emotion. Our fists clench, our jaw tightens, our world shrinks to the size of our grievance. When a wisp of happiness floats by, we say, "I am happy," and we cling to it desperately, fearing the moment it will dissolve. When the gray clouds of boredom settle in, we say, "I am bored," and we feel a deep sense of lack and restlessness. Our inner well-being becomes entirely dependent on the mental weather, which is, by its very nature, uncontrollable and constantly changing. To live this way is to be a ship without a rudder, tossed about by every passing wave and gust of wind. It is a life of inherent instability and anxiety. The great liberation offered by this path is the shift in identification from the clouds to the sky. The practice is to realize that your fundamental nature, the core of who you are, is the sky-like awareness in which all these mental and emotional clouds appear. The sky does not cling to the beautiful, wispy clouds. It does not fight or flee from the dark, stormy ones. It does not resent the gray, boring ones. The sky does one thing, and one thing only. It allows them all to be. It provides the vast, open, accommodating space for them to arise, to exist for a time, and to pass away, all on their own. And most importantly, no matter how violent the storm, no cloud can ever stain, burn, or damage the sky. Once the storm has passed, The sky is as pure, blue, and peaceful as it was before. It is untouched. To realize that you are the sky is to find an unconditional peace that does not depend on the contents of your mind. It means that you can experience a storm of anger passing through you without becoming the anger. You can feel the immense energy of that emotion within your body, but your identity remains rooted in the calm, witnessing awareness that is observing the storm. This is not a practice of emotional suppression or spiritual bypassing. It is the opposite. It is a radical act of allowing. You allow the anger to be there. You allow the sadness to be there. You allow the joy to be there. You give it all space, but you no longer believe it is who you are. This separation, this disidentification, is the end of suffering. Suffering is not the anger itself. Suffering is the belief that I am this anger. So how do we cultivate this identity as the sky? How do we stop being a cloud? We practice being the observer. We use the muscle of attention we developed by watching the breath, and we turn it towards our own thoughts and emotions. One of the most effective techniques is simple labeling. When a thought or feeling arises, instead of immediately being swept away by its story, you create a moment of space by mentally applying a gentle, non-judgmental label. If you find your mind churning with worry about a future event, you can simply note worrying or planning. If a memory from the past appears, you can label it remembering. If a harsh, critical thought about yourself arises, you can note judging. The label is not an analysis. It is a simple recognition of the type of mental event that is occurring. This simple act is revolutionary. It immediately shifts you from the position of being the thinker to the position of being the one who is aware of the thinking. It places you back in the sky, observing the cloud. This leads to a profound change in our internal language, which in turn reshapes our entire experience of life. We move from the language of identification to the language of awareness. Instead of the thought, I am anxious, which is a statement of absolute identity, we practice the formulation, I am aware of a feeling of anxiety arising in me. Can you feel the difference? In the first statement, there is no space. You and anxiety are one and the same. In the second statement, there is you, the awareness, and there is the feeling of anxiety, a temporary event happening within you. You are the container. Anxiety is the content. By practicing this shift, you depersonalize your thoughts and emotions. You see them not as your own personal flaws or virtues, but as impersonal, conditioned phenomena that arise and pass away in consciousness. They lose their power over you because you are no longer giving them the authority to define you. There is a classic Taoist and Zen parable that illuminates this perfectly. It is the story of the empty boat. A man was taking a rest, rowing his small boat across a wide, misty lake. The tranquility was deep, and he felt at peace with the world. Suddenly, with a loud thud, another boat crashed into his. His peace was instantly shattered. A surge of anger rose up in him. He stood up and began shouting, hurling insults at the person in the other boat, blaming them for their stupidity and carelessness. He was ready for a furious confrontation, but as he peered through the shifting mist, he saw that the other boat was empty. It had simply broken free from its moorings on the shore and had drifted aimlessly across the lake, its journey ending by chance against his own boat. In that instant, all of his anger vanished. It simply evaporated. It had nowhere to go. How can you be angry at an empty boat? He felt a bit foolish. The raw energy of his rage, which had felt so justified and so real just a moment before, was now revealed to be entirely his own creation. The collision was a neutral event. The anger was not in the boat. The anger was in him. Our thoughts are like that empty boat. They drift into the lake of our awareness. They are impersonal. A thought of fear, a thought of jealousy, a thought of self-doubt is just an empty boat bumping into us. Our habitual reaction is to stand up and start yelling at the boat. We get angry at the thought. We wrestle with it. We believe its story. We blame it for disturbing our peace. We engage it in a long, exhausting argument. We give it substance, meaning, and power by reacting to it as if there is a real, malicious pilot steering it. The wisdom of Zen is to learn to see the boat is empty. A thought is just a thought. It is a conditioned, impersonal flicker of energy. It has no inherent power. It is not your thought in any meaningful sense. It is just mental weather. When you truly see a thought as an empty boat, you can't get angry at it. You don't need to fight with it. You simply notice the bump, see that the boat is empty, and let it drift on by. Your peace is no longer held hostage by these drifting, empty vessels. You remain as the calm, wide lake, allowing all boats, full or empty, to cross your surface without disturbance to your depths. By practicing being the sky and seeing thoughts as empty boats, we are not creating a state of cold, robotic detachment. We are cultivating a warm, spacious, and compassionate presence. We are learning to hold our own inner world with the same gentle allowance that the sky holds the clouds. This stable, witnessing perspective gives us a newfound clarity. We are no longer lost in the fog and the storm. We are observing it from a place of safety and peace. And from this vantage point, we can begin to notice something remarkable and universal about all the clouds, about all the empty boats, no matter their size, shape, or color. We notice that they are all in motion. None of them stay. The darkest thunder cloud eventually runs out of rain and dissolves. The most beautiful, sunlit cloud is eventually reshaped by the wind. They all arise, and they all pass away. This direct seeing of the transient nature of all thought is the next crucial step on our journey. It is the wisdom of impermanence. We have begun to shift our identity from the fleeting clouds of thought to the vast, accepting sky of awareness. From this new vantage point, we can now observe the clouds with a clarity that was previously impossible. And as we watch, patiently and without judgment, one characteristic above all others becomes stunningly obvious. The clouds never stop moving. They are in a constant state of flux, of transformation. They are born from the ether. They take on a shape. They drift. They merge. They dissipate. Not a single cloud is static. This universal truth, this fundamental law of existence, is known in Buddhism as impermanence or anicca. It is the teaching that everything, without exception, is in a state of constant change. And applying this profound insight to the nature of our own minds is a pivotal step on the path to inner freedom. The law of impermanence is not a pessimistic or nihilistic philosophy. It is a simple, radical realism. Look around you. Your body is changing with every breath. The cells that compose it are dying and being replaced in a ceaseless dance. The relationships in your life evolve, deepen, or fade away. The seasons turn, mountains erode, stars are born and die. Even the things that seem most solid and stable are, on a long enough timeline, merely slow-moving processes. The universe is not a collection of fixed nouns. It is a symphony of active verbs. Nothing is permanent, nothing is separate. Everything is flowing. To resist this flow is to resist reality itself, and that resistance is a primary source of our human suffering. We seek permanence in a world that offers none, and we are perpetually disappointed. Now, let us bring this cosmic law into the intimate laboratory of our own consciousness. Our thoughts, which can feel so solid, so heavy, and so overwhelmingly real, are perhaps the most perfect examples of impermanence in action. A thought is not a thing. It is an event. It is a flicker of energy in the vast network of the brain. It is like a bubble rising to the surface of a deep pond. It appears for a moment. It shimmers with its own content, and then it pops, vanishing back into the stillness from which it came. Consider any thought you have ever had, no matter how powerful. A thought of ecstatic joy at a great success, a thought of profound grief at a terrible loss, a thought of searing anger at an injustice. Where are those thoughts now? They are gone. They were replaced by other thoughts, which were, in turn, replaced by others. The mind is a river, not a statue. Its very nature is to flow. To try and hold on to one thought, or to stop the river from flowing, is an impossible and exhausting task. This is where the mechanism of our suffering becomes clear. It arises from our relationship to this natural flow, specifically from two actions, clinging and aversion. When a pleasant thought or feeling arises, sense of peace, a moment of inspiration, a wave of affection, or immediate instinct is to grasp it. We think, this is wonderful. I want this to last forever. This is clinging, but because of Anika, it cannot last forever. The beautiful cloud must drift on, the pleasant feeling must subside, and because we are clinging to it, its inevitable departure causes us pain. We are left feeling a sense of loss or disappointment, not because the feeling left, but because we tried to possess something that was never possessible. The other side of the coin is aversion. When an unpleasant thought or feeling arises, fear, shame, anxiety, boredom or instinct is to push it away. We think, this is awful. I have to get rid of this feeling. This is aversion. We declare war on our own inner experience. But this too is a fight against reality. The thought has already arisen. It is present. By resisting it, by struggling against it, we do not make it disappear. Instead, we feed it with our energy and attention. We create a secondary layer of suffering, the suffering of resistance on top of the initial discomfort of the thought itself. We are wrestling with a ghost, and the only one getting tired is us. The path of wisdom is the middle way between clinging and aversion. It is the path of non-interference. It is the practice of allowing the river of the mind to flow as it will, without trying to dam it up or divert its course. This is the essence of vipassana, or insight meditation. The practice is simply to sit and to watch the process of your own mind with a calm, scientific curiosity. You sit and you notice, a thought of the future has arisen. You watch it. You don't follow its story. You don't argue with it. You don't try to get rid of it. You just observe it as an event in consciousness. And you see what happens. Perhaps it gets stronger for a moment. Perhaps it changes into a different thought. Perhaps it simply fades into nothing. You watch its birth, its brief life, and its inevitable death. Then another thought is born. You watch that one too. In doing this, you are experiencing the law of Anika directly. You are not just thinking about it. You are feeling it in the very texture of your being. You are seeing, with irrefutable, first-hand evidence, that no thought is solid, and no thought is permanent. There is a timeless Taoist story that perfectly captures the wisdom of living in harmony with impermanence. It is the story of an old farmer and his horse. One day, the farmer's only horse ran away. His neighbors came to console him. "Oh, what terrible luck," they said. The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." A week later, the horse returned, and it brought with it a herd of wild horses. The neighbors gathered again, this time to celebrate. "What incredible good fortune," they exclaimed. The farmer calmly replied, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son was trying to tame one of the wild horses when he was thrown off and broke his leg. The neighbors came once more, shaking their heads. "How awful! Your good luck has turned to bad," they lamented. The farmer, looking at his son's injury, just said, "Maybe." A few weeks after that, the emperor's army marched into the village, forcibly conscripting every able-bodied young man for a bloody and dangerous war. When they saw the farmer's son with his broken leg, they left him behind. The neighbors, whose sons had all been taken, came to the farmer with tears in their eyes. "You were right to be uncertain. Your son has been spared. You are the luckiest man of all." The old farmer, tending to his son, simply nodded and said, "Maybe." End quote. The neighbors in this story represent our ordinary, untrained mind. They react instantly to every event, slapping a definitive label of good or bad upon it. They are riding a constant emotional roller coaster, thrown from despair to elation and back again, based on the changing, unpredictable flow of circumstances. The farmer, however, embodies the wisdom of Anika. He understands that reality is a complex, unfolding process. He knows that today's good luck might be the seed of tomorrow's bad luck, and that today's tragedy might be a blessing in disguise. He does not resist what happens. He does not cling to the good or despair over the bad. He maintains a spacious equanimity by withholding his final judgment, by allowing life to reveal its nature in its own time. Our thoughts are like the events in the farmer's life. A thought of fear arrives. The mind says, "This is terrible." A thought of pride arrives. The mind says, "This is wonderful." The wise practice is to adopt the farmer's attitude. When a thought appears, you simply note its presence and say to yourself, "Maybe." You see it for what it is, a transient event, a passing cloud, without immediately believing its story or getting entangled in its emotional charge. This is the freedom that comes from deeply understanding impermanence. When you know, not just as an idea, but as a felt reality, that the most painful emotion, the most obsessive thought pattern, is by its very nature temporary, it loses its terror. The fear of a painful feeling is often rooted in a deeper, unconscious fear that it will last forever. We feel a wave of anxiety and think, "Oh no, what if I feel like this for the rest of my life?" It is this fear of permanence that makes the present moment unbearable. But when you know the storm will pass, because it is the nature of all storms to pass, you can find the strength to endure it. You can allow it to happen, knowing that you, the sky, are larger than any storm. You can rest in the knowledge that this too shall pass. Understanding the impermanent nature of our thoughts is a monumental step. It frees us from being tossed about by their content. It allows us to relate to our own minds with more grace, patience, and compassion. We have seen that we are the sky, not the clouds. We have now seen that all clouds, without exception, are in a state of constant flow. This untangles us from what we think. But Zen, in its profound inquiry into the nature of reality, invites us to take one step further, to ask an even more radical question. We have examined the thoughts, but what about the thinker? If the thoughts are an ever-changing river, what is the nature of the I that seems to be having these thoughts? Is this self, this sense of being a permanent, solid entity behind the thoughts, also part of the flow? Is the thinker as impermanent as the thoughts being thought? This investigation leads us into the very heart of Zen wisdom, to the next, and perhaps most challenging insight, the teaching of non-self, or anatta. We have stood on the riverbank of the mind and watched the ceaseless flow of thoughts, recognizing their impermanent nature. We have seen that every thought, every feeling, is a passing cloud in the vast sky of awareness. This insight alone brings a great sense of relief. But the path of Zen invites us to push our inquiry deeper, to turn the lens of investigation around and point it at the most cherished and unexamined assumption of all, the observer itself. We feel, instinctively, that while our thoughts may change, I remain. There is a thinker behind the thoughts, a feeler behind the feelings, a solid, continuous self who is the star of this inner movie. Zen asks us to question this. Is there really a permanent, independent, I at the center of our experience. This investigation into what is called anatta, or non-self, is one of the most radical and profoundly liberating explorations a human being can undertake. Let us begin this investigation not as a philosophical debate, but as a direct, personal experiment. Find a quiet moment, sit comfortably, allow a thought to arise naturally in your mind. It could be any thought at all. I need to go shopping later. That person was unkind to me. I wonder what time it is. The moment the thought appears, perform a swift mental U-turn. Instead of following the thought's story, turn your attention back on itself and ask, with genuine curiosity, who thought that? Look for the thinker. Where is this I that just had the thought? Is it located somewhere in your head? Is it behind your eyes? Is it a feeling in your chest? Scan your entire being for this entity called I. What do you find? You might find a physical sensation, like a tightness in the forehead. You might find a vague feeling of presence. You might find another thought, one that says, "Of course it's me. Who else would it be?" But if you look at that new thought and ask again, "Who thought that?" you are again left with the same mystery. You will not find a solid, static, singular thing that you can point to and say, "There, that is the self, that is the thinker." The search for the thinker reveals only more thoughts, more sensations, more feelings, all of them flickering and changing. It is like trying to find the source of an echo in a canyon. The search itself reveals that there is no single, locatable source, only the resounding process of the echo itself. This direct experience points to a core Buddhist teaching. What we call the self is not a noun, but a verb. It is not a thing, but a process. It is a temporary bundling together of different, ever-changing components. In Buddhist psychology, these are known as the 5 skandhas, or the 5 aggregates of clinging. Imagine these as 5 flowing streams that converge to create the momentary illusion of a solid river we call me. The first stream is form, which is our physical body and all its sensations. The second is feeling, the raw, primal experience of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral that arises whenever we make contact with the world. The third is perception, the part of the mind that recognizes, identifies, and labels everything. That is a tree, this is a sound, that is a feeling of sadness. The fourth, and a very powerful stream, is mental formations, which includes all our habits, our biases, our intentions, our opinions, and the vast majority of our thought chatter. The voice of the monkey mind lives here. And the fifth stream is consciousness, the basic faculty of knowing, the light of awareness that illuminates and makes possible the experience of the other 4 streams. At any given moment, what you call I is simply a unique combination of these 5 flowing processes. There is a body with its sensations, a feeling tone, a perception, a flurry of mental activity, and the consciousness of it all. There is no separate 6th thing, no CEO or executive standing apart from these 5 streams and controlling them. The self is like the word car. We use the label car for convenience, but a car is nothing more than a temporary assembly of wheels, an engine, a chassis, and other parts. There is no essential carness floating around that exists independently of the parts. If you take all the parts away, there is no car left. In the same way, if you observe the 5 flowing streams of your experience, you will find no separate self left over. The self is a convenient label, a useful convention for navigating the world, but it is not an ultimate reality. It is a process, not a permanent entity. We live our lives under the powerful illusion that there is indeed a CEO in the head. We imagine a little person sitting at a control panel in our skull, making decisions, feeling emotions, and directing our lives. This little person, the ego, feels an immense burden. It feels it is the author of all our thoughts and the master of our destiny. It takes credit for success and blame for failure. It lives in a constant state of anxiety because its job is to manage the unmanageable, the chaotic, spontaneous arising of life. The insight of anatta is the realization that the CEO's office is, and has always been, empty. There is no one in charge. Thoughts arise not because an I decides to think them, but because of a vast, intricate web of causes and conditions. A comment someone made yesterday, something you ate for breakfast, the weather, a forgotten memory, all these factors, and a million more contribute to the arising of a single thought. To believe you are the sole author of your thoughts is like a single wave, believing it is in control of the entire ocean. This realization can, at first, feel frightening. If there is no self, then who am I? Am I being annihilated? Does this mean nothing matters? This is a common and understandable fear, but it is based on a misunderstanding. The teaching of non-self is not about the annihilation of anything real. It is about the liberation from an illusion. You do not lose your personality, your memories, or your uniqueness. You lose the heavy, exhausting burden of the fictitious self. You lose the part of you that is constantly comparing, constantly defending, constantly seeking validation, and constantly afraid of being diminished. Think of the immense energy we spend every day polishing and protecting this fragile statue of me. We worry what people think of us. We defend our opinions as if they were our very life. We feel slighted, offended, and insecure. All of this suffering is on behalf of a self that, upon close inspection, cannot even be found. When you see this, you don't lose yourself. You lose your chains. You can become more open, more spontaneous, more courageous, and far more compassionate. Because the hard, defensive shell of the ego begins to soften and dissolve. There is a famous Zen story that illustrates the problem of the solidified self. A distinguished professor of philosophy, a man renowned for his knowledge, traveled to visit the Zen master Nan to learn about Zen. Being a Zen master, Nanin greeted him graciously and offered him tea. He brought the tea set, placed a cup before the professor, and began to pour. He filled the cup to the brim, but then he did not stop. He kept pouring, and the tea overflowed, spilling onto the saucer and then onto the table. The professor watched in astonishment and then, unable to contain himself any longer, burst out. "Stop! The cup is over full. No more will go in." Nan calmly put down the teapot, looked at the professor, and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The professor in this story is all of us, trapped in our sense of self. His cup is his mind, filled to the brim with what he knows, with his identity as a learned man. He is so full of his own self that there is no room for anything new to enter. He cannot receive the teaching because he believes he is already complete. Emptying your cup is a beautiful metaphor for the insight of non-self. It means letting go of the need to be a full cup, the need to be a solid, knowing self. It is the willingness to be empty, to be open, to not know. It is in this emptiness of self that true wisdom can be received, not as another idea to add to the collection, but as a direct experience that transforms our very being. Our journey of investigation has taken us through astonishing territory. We began by seeing that the thoughts that construct our reality are as fleeting and impermanent as clouds. Now, we have looked for the thinker of those thoughts and have found that it, too, is not a solid entity, but a selfless, dynamic process, a convergence of flowing streams. The clouds are empty of permanence, and the sky itself, upon closer inspection, seems to be empty of any central, controlling owner. This leads us to a profound and pivotal question. If the contents of our experience are transient and the container is selfless, what is the fundamental nature of reality itself? When we see that everything, thoughts, feelings, objects, even our own self is devoid of a separate, independent, fixed essence, we are touching upon one of the most sublime concepts in Mahayana Buddhism. We are approaching the threshold of understanding sunyata, or emptiness. This is not the frightening void of nothingness, but a dynamic, vibrant, and liberating emptiness that is the very source of all possibility. Our investigation has led us into profound territory. We have watched the river of our thoughts and seen its impermanent nature. We have searched for the solid, unchanging thinker and found only a selfless, flowing process. We have deconstructed our experience, piece by piece, and have found nothing that is fixed, separate, or independent. This relentless inquiry brings us to the threshold of what is arguably the most challenging, misunderstood, and ultimately liberating concept in Zen Buddhism, sunyata, translated from Sanskrit as emptiness. At first hearing, the word itself can sound terrifying. It conjures images of a cold, dark void, a nihilistic abyss where nothing matters, but this is a profound misunderstanding. In the Zen tradition, emptiness is not a lack, but a fullness. It is not nothingness, but a dynamic and vibrant nothingness. It is the very condition for all life, all creativity, and all freedom. To understand emptiness, we must first dismantle what it is not. It does not mean that things do not exist. The chair you are sitting on is real. The sound of these words is real. The feeling of the breath in your lungs is real. Emptiness does not deny the reality of our experience. It clarifies its nature. It teaches that nothing exists on its own, independently. Everything arises in relationship to everything else. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh coined the wonderful term into being to describe this reality. Consider a single sheet of paper. If we look deeply, we can see that it is not just a sheet of paper. In it, we can see a tree. Without the tree, there is no paper. And for the tree to exist, it needed sunshine, rain, and soil. So the sun and the clouds are also in the paper. We can see the logger who cut down the tree, and in the logger, we see the wheat for the bread he ate for breakfast. We see his parents and their parents. We see the factory workers who turned the wood to pulp, the truck driver who brought the paper to the store. The entire universe, in its intricate and endless web of causes and conditions, has conspired to bring this single sheet of paper into existence. The paper, therefore, is empty of a separate, independent self. It is full of everything else. Emptiness, in this context, means empty of a separate identity, and this is true for everything, including ourselves. You are empty of a separate self. Your existence is dependent on the air you breathe, the food you eat, the language you speak, the people who raised you, and the countless generations that came before them. You are with all that is. This is not a poetic sentiment. It is a description of reality. And it is this very emptiness of a separate self that allows for life to happen. If a seed were a solid, permanent, independent thing, it could never sprout and grow into a tree. It is its emptiness, its potential, its interconnectedness with soil, water, and sun that allows for its transformation. Emptiness is not a void. It is the open space of infinite possibility. Now, let us apply this directly to our thoughts. Just like the sheet of paper, a thought is empty. It is empty of any solid, independent, self-contained reality. Where does a thought come from? Does it arise from nothing, created solely by a master, number? A single thought of anxiety, for instance, is a convergence of countless conditions. It is born from a past experience, a news article you read, the level of caffeine in your bloodstream, a cultural narrative about success and failure, a stray comment from a friend. The thought has no substance of its own. It is a momentary ripple on the surface of consciousness, created by the winds of 1,000 different causes. When we are not aware of this, we treat our thoughts as if they are blocks of granite. A painful thought arises, and we believe in its solidity. We feel its weight. We let it define us. We think, this thought of inadequacy is me. We give it a power it does not inherently possess. The liberation of seeing the emptiness of thought is immense. It is like discovering that the monster chasing you is just a shadow. When you see a thought's empty nature, you realize it has no weight. It cannot stick to you. Imagine trying to nail a glob of jelly to the wall. It's a foolish exercise. The jelly has no solidity. You cannot affix it. Difficult thoughts are like that jelly. We spend our lives trying to fight them, analyze them, or nail them down, treating them as if they are solid. The wisdom of emptiness is seeing their jelly-like nature. When a painful thought of guilt or fear arises, and you can see that it is an empty, conditioned, impersonal event with no solid core, it simply passes through the space of your awareness. It cannot cling to you, because there is no solid you for it to cling to, and there is no solid it to do the clinging. It is like the sky watching a cloud pass. The cloud does not stick to the sky. This is not about ignoring or suppressing thoughts. It is about seeing their true, insubstantial nature so clearly that they no longer have the power to imprison you. A beautiful and classic metaphor is that of the wave and the ocean. Imagine you are a wave on the surface of the sea. As a wave, you have a distinct identity. You have a birth as you rise from the swell. You have a unique shape and size. You have a lifespan, which ends as you crash upon the shore. From the perspective of the wave, it is an individual, separate entity, and its end is a terrifying prospect. It might look at other waves and feel jealousy for the bigger ones, or disdain for the smaller ones. This is the perspective of the separate self. But what if the wave had a moment of deep insight and realized its true nature? What is a wave made of? It is made of water. It is nothing but ocean. It is the ocean itself rising up to express itself in a temporary form. Can you take the ocean out of the wave? Number. The wave is ocean. When the wave realizes this, its fear of death vanishes. How can it die? It is simply returning to its true nature, changing its form. It was never separate from the ocean to begin with. We are like that wave. The personality, the body, the story we call me, that is the form of the wave. Our thoughts are the little ripples on the surface of our wave, but our true nature, our substance, is the vast ocean of consciousness itself, the totality of life. We are not a separate drop of water. We are the entire ocean expressing itself for a time as this unique wave. To understand emptiness is to realize you are the ocean, not just the wave. When you know this, the drama of the individual wave its pride, its fear, its comparison slows its tragic intensity. You can enjoy the ride, the unique expression of being this particular wave, without being terrified of its end. This profound realization has one more crucial consequence. It naturally gives rise to compassion. As long as we believe we are separate, solid waves, the suffering of another wave is its own problem. We might feel a detached pity, but there is still a hard line between my suffering and your suffering. But when the illusion of separateness begins to dissolve, when we truly see and feel the reality of interbeing, that hard line becomes porous. We realize that the water that makes up my wave is the same water that makes up your wave. Your joy and your suffering are not fundamentally separate from mine. The very air you exhale is what I inhale. Your well-being affects my well-being, not just in a social or economic sense, but in a deep existential sense. From this understanding, compassion, or karuna, is not a moral commandment you must follow. It is not an effortful act of being good. It is the spontaneous and natural response of a being that recognizes its deep connection to all other beings. It is the ocean feeling the disturbance in another part of itself. To cause harm to another is to pollute the very water of which you are made. To offer kindness and help to another is to nourish the entire ocean, and therefore to nourish yourself. Compassion becomes as natural as breathing when the illusion of the separate self, which is the root of all selfishness and conflict, is seen for what it is, an empty story. We have now journeyed from the prison of the mind into the vast, open expanse of emptiness. We have seen that thoughts are impermanent, the thinker is selfless, and the nature of all reality is one of profound, dynamic interconnectedness. These are not mere concepts to be collected. They are pointers to a lived reality. An intellectual understanding of emptiness is like reading a cookbook instead of tasting the food. The question now becomes a practical one. How do we move this understanding from our head to our very bones? How do we learn to live as the ocean, not just as the wave? The path of Zen provides a direct and time-tested answer. We must return from the heights of philosophy to the simple, humble ground of our own body and breath. We must engage in the core practice that is designed to cultivate and deepen these insights experientially. We must learn the art of Zazen, the art of just sitting. Having journeyed through the profound and at times disorienting landscapes of impermanence, non-self, and emptiness, we arrive at a crucial turning point. These insights, as luminous as they are, can risk remaining as beautiful ideas, concepts collected by the mind, like exotic souvenirs from a distant land. The central question becomes deeply practical. How do we bring this wisdom down from the clouds of philosophy and into the soil of our daily lives? How do we learn to truly live these truths, not just understand them? The Zen tradition offers a path that is remarkably direct, simple, and embodied. It is the core practice, the very heart of Zen itself. It is called Zazen, which simply means sitting meditation. It is the art and the discipline of just sitting. Before we explore what Zazen is, it is essential to clear the ground by understanding what it is not. For many, the word meditation conjures images of trying to force the mind into a state of blissful silence, a battle to eliminate all thought. From the Zen perspective, this is a fundamental misunderstanding. The mind's nature is to produce thoughts, just as a gland's nature is to secrete hormones. To declare war on your thoughts is to declare war on your own mind. It is a battle you can never win, and the effort alone creates more tension and frustration. Trying to forcibly empty the mind is like trying to flatten the waves of the ocean with a hot iron. The very attempt only creates more steam and turbulence. The desire to achieve a state of no thoughts is, itself, just another thought, another subtle grasping for a future state. Zazen is not a technique for achieving a special state or escaping the reality of your mind. It is a practice of being fully present with your mind, exactly as it is. The essence of Zazen is captured in the Japanese term shikantaza, which can be translated as just sitting. There is no complex visualization, no mantra to repeat, no specific goal to attain. The instruction is, in its purity, almost scandalous to the Western mind, which is so conditioned to strive and achieve. The instruction is to simply sit, to inhabit your posture fully, and to allow the totality of your experience to be just as it is. You allow thoughts to arise without getting on board their train of narrative. You allow them to pass away without celebrating their departure. You hear sounds, you feel sensations in the body, you notice feelings of boredom, peace, or agitation. You simply let it all come, and you let it all go. You are the host of a party, and you allow all guests, the pleasant, the unpleasant, and the neutralto, enter and leave as they please. You are polite and aware of their presence, but you do not follow them out the door. This practice begins with the body. In Zen, the body is not seen as a troublesome vehicle for the mind, but as the physical manifestation of our being. The posture of Zazen is the container for the practice. It both reflects and cultivates a state of mind that is grounded, dignified, and alert. You can sit on a cushion on the floor or on a chair. If on a chair, keep your feet flat on the ground and your spine upright. If on a cushion, you might adopt a traditional posture like the full lotus, half lotus, or the simpler Burmese style, where one foot rests on the floor in front of the other. The key is to create a stable, solid, triangular base with your knees and spine. Your spine should be erect but not stiff, like a great oak tree rooted in the earth but reaching for the sky. Your hands are typically held in the cosmic mudra, with your dominant hand holding your other hand, palms up, with the tips of the thumbs lightly touching to form a gentle oval. This mudra is rested in your lap, against your abdomen. A key element of Zazen is that the eyes are kept open. They are not wide open, looking around and getting distracted, nor are they closed, which can lead to drowsiness and daydreaming. The eyes are kept half open, with a soft, unfocused gaze resting on the floor about 2 or 3 feet in front of you. This practice of open-eyed meditation is significant. It is a statement that we are not trying to escape from the world, but to be fully present within it. We are here, awake, in this room, in this moment. The breath is natural, flowing in and out through the nose. Your attention can rest lightly on the breath, or simply remain open to all experience. This posture is not an end in itself, but a tool. It is the physical expression of the wakeful, stable, and spacious awareness we are cultivating. With the body settled, we simply sit, and we watch what the mind does. It will think, it will worry, plan, remember, and fantasize. This is not a problem. This is the material of our practice. As a thought arises, you simply acknowledge its presence and let it go, returning your awareness to the stillness of the body, to the sensation of sitting. You do not analyze the thought's content. You are not interested in the story it is telling. You are interested only in the raw process of thinking itself. You are watching the mind operate. You are watching the clouds drift through the sky. For a few seconds, you might be present. Then, you will be lost in a train of thought for 5 minutes without realizing it. The moment you realize you have been lost is a golden moment. It is a moment of awakening. Without scolding yourself, without any drama, you simply, gently, return your awareness to the posture, to the present moment. This process of getting lost and gently returning, over and over and over again, is the practice of Zazen. In this way, the meditation cushion becomes a laboratory for direct self-inquiry. It is here that the profound philosophical teachings we have explored cease to be ideas and become lived truths. You sit and you experience anicca, impermanence, directly. You see with your own awareness that no thought, no feeling, no sensation lasts. A feeling of peace arises, and it passes. A painful memory arises, and it passes. An obsessive worry arises, and it, too, eventually passes. You stop believing in the permanence of your mental states because you have witnessed their fleeting nature 1,000 times. You sit and you experience anatta, non-self. You ask, who is feeling this boredom? You look, and you cannot find a solid, separate feeler. You find only the feeling of boredom itself. You see that thoughts think themselves, arising from a vast web of conditions. You see that the sense of a central I, who is in control, is just another thought that comes and goes like all the others. The self reveals itself to be a process, not a thing, and you sit and you touch sunyata, emptiness. You see how every experience is interconnected. A sound from the street triggers a memory from childhood, which gives rise to a feeling of sadness, which is then replaced by a thought about the future. You see that nothing exists in isolation. Everything is co-arising, empty of a separate self. The mind is not a solid object, but a spacious, open field in which all of this activity can unfold. There is a well-known Zen story that beautifully illustrates the ultimate purpose of Zazen. A young, eager student asked a Zen master, "What did you do before you were enlightened?" The master replied, "I chopped wood and I carried water." The student then asked, "And what do you do now, after you have attained enlightenment?" The master smiled and said, "I chop wood and I carry water." The student was confused. Then what is the difference? What has changed? The master explained, "Before enlightenment, when I was chopping wood, my mind was thinking about carrying water. And when I was carrying water, my mind was thinking about what was for dinner. Now, when I chop wood, I just chop wood. When I carry water, I just carry water." This story reveals the heart of the matter. The goal of Zen is not to achieve some transcendent state where one floats above the messy reality of ordinary life. The goal is to be fully present for and engaged with the life that is right in front of you. The miracle is not to walk on water, but to walk on the green earth in the present moment. Zazen is the formal training ground where we practice this art of single-minded presence. We practice just sitting on the cushion so that we can learn how to just chop wood and just carry water off the cushion. It is the dojo where we cultivate a mind that is stable enough, clear enough, and open enough to meet each moment of our lives without the constant distraction of the monkey mind. The ultimate aim of Zazen is not to become a great meditator. It is to become a fully alive human being. The cushion is where we learn, but the world is where we practice. And so, our journey now takes us from the stillness of the meditation hall into the dynamic, chaotic, and beautiful marketplace of everyday life, to explore how we can bring this awakened mind into every action we take. The image of the enlightened master, continuing to chop wood and carry water, reveals a fundamental truth of the Zen path. The goal is not to transcend or escape ordinary life, but to infuse it with an extraordinary quality of presence. The peace we cultivate in the stillness of Zazen is not meant to be a fragile treasure, kept safe in a quiet room and visited for a few minutes each day. It is meant to be a robust, portable peace, a form of wisdom we can carry with us into the noisy, demanding, and often chaotic marketplace of our lives. The true test of our practice is not on the cushion, but off it. This is the practice of Zen in action, the art of bringing the focused, spacious mind of meditation into every single thing we do. The meditation hall is not a place, it is a state of mind, and so the whole world can become our meditation hall. The core principle of Zen in action is breathtakingly simple. Do one thing at a time and give it your whole being. It is the practice of closing the gap between your mind and your body so that they are operating in perfect unison. When you are walking, the mind is walking. When you are writing an email, the mind is writing the email. When you are listening to a child, the mind is doing nothing else but listening. This runs directly counter to the modern world's obsession with multitasking, which has been sold to us as a key to efficiency and success. But multitasking is a myth. The brain does not actually do multiple complex tasks simultaneously. Instead, it switches its attention back and forth between tasks with frantic, exhausting speed. This rapid switching creates mental fragmentation, increases stress hormones, and leads to a higher rate of errors. It is the very embodiment of the monkey mind, given free rein over our daily schedule. leaving us feeling scattered, anxious, and perpetually one step behind. The practice of mindfulness in action is the antidote. It is the art of single tasking, and paradoxically, by doing one thing at a time, we become more effective, more efficient, and profoundly more peaceful. Let us transform some of the most mundane daily chores into opportunities for deep practice. Consider the act of washing the dishes. For most of us, this is an automatic, boring task to be rushed through, while our mind is elsewhere planning the next day, replaying an argument, worrying. To practice Zen with the dishes, you turn this on its head. You decide that for these 10 minutes, washing the dishes is the most important thing in the world. You feel the warmth of the water on your hands. You notice the weight and texture of the plate. You see the iridescent colors shimmering in the soap bubbles. You hear the sound of the sponge scrubbing the surface. When your mind inevitably wanders, you don't scold it. You simply notice, the mind has wandered, and gently guide your attention back to the reality of this one plate, this warm water, this present moment. You treat each dish with the care and reverence you might give to a sacred object. In doing so, the chore is no longer a chore. It becomes a moving meditation, a moment of sanity and peace in the middle of your day. Or consider the act of eating. So often, we eat on autopilot, our attention absorbed by a screen, a conversation, or our own thoughts. The food disappears without us ever truly tasting it. Mindful eating is a powerful practice of return. Before you take the first bite, pause, look at the food, see the colors, the shapes, the textures. Take a moment to acknowledge where this food came from: the earth, the sun, the rain, the work of many people. This cultivates gratitude. As you take the first bite, do so consciously. Place the food in your mouth and put your fork down. Just chew. Try to notice all the different flavors. Is it sweet, salty, sour, bitter? What is the texture? Notice the impulse to immediately reach for the next bite before you have even finished the first. Simply notice it. By eating this way, you not only rediscover the simple, profound pleasure of food, you also become more attuned to your body's signals of hunger and fullness. You are no longer just consuming fuel, you are engaging in a life-giving practice of presence. Even walking can be transformed. In Zen monasteries, they practice kin-hin, a formal, slow-walking meditation, often between long periods of sitting. We can adapt this for our daily lives. As you walk from your car to your office, or down the hallway to a meeting, bring your attention to the physical sensations of walking. Feel the soles of your feet making contact with the ground, the heels striking, the weight rolling through the foot, the toes pushing off. Feel the subtle shifting of balance in your hips, the gentle swing of your arms. You are not walking merely to get to a destination. The walking itself becomes the destination. Each step is a return to the present moment, an anchor in the here and now. There is a powerful Zen story about a master swordsman who, despite his great skill, felt something was missing from his art. He went to a renowned Zen master, hoping to learn the secrets of the unshakable mind. He expected to be given complex koans or esoteric meditation instructions. Instead, the master assigned him to be the monastery's cook and gardener. For months, the swordsman chopped vegetables, swept floors, and tended the garden, while the master said not a word about Zen. The swordsman grew frustrated. The only unusual part of his training was that the master would, at completely random moments, sneak up on him and try to strike him with a wooden practice sword. While the swordsman was lost in thought, chopping carrots, whack, the stick would find his ribs. While sweeping the temple steps, his mind drifting, whack, the stick would strike his shoulders. In order to avoid the constant, painful blows, the swordsman was forced to change. He had to learn to inhabit his every action with a total, relaxed, 360-degree awareness. His mind had to be completely with the vegetables he was chopping, while simultaneously being aware of the entire space around him. His senses became sharp. His mind, previously scattered, became unified and grounded in the present moment. After several years of this, he could sense the master's approach from any direction and would effortlessly pivot and block the strike without any conscious thought. One morning, the master came to him and said, "Your training is complete. You have nothing more to learn from me." The swordsman had learned the essence of Zen not by thinking about it on a cushion, but by being forced to live it in every mundane action. He had learned that true mastery is the result of a mind that is fully undivided in the present moment. This story reveals that mindfulness in action is not a dull, sleepy state. It is a state of vibrant, dynamic alertness. It is a unification of mind and body that allows for spontaneous, appropriate, and effective action. We may not have a Zen master following us with a wooden stick, but life itself provides us with constant reminders to be present. When we are mentally absent while driving, we risk an accident. When we are not truly listening to a partner or a colleague, we create misunderstanding and conflict. Life is constantly trying to wake us up from our slumber of distraction. The practice of Zen in action is about choosing to wake up voluntarily, to bring that swordsman's total presence to our own daily tasks of chopping vegetables and carrying water. By engaging with our lives in this way, we begin to dissolve the artificial boundary between our spiritual practice and our real life. Life itself becomes the practice. Peace is not something we have to retreat from the world to find. It is something we can discover in the heart of our activities. But this raises an important question. It is one thing to find presence while washing a dish or walking down a quiet street. But what happens when the disturbance is not a distraction from the outside, but a storm from within? What happens when we are confronted not by a wandering thought, but by the powerful, overwhelming energies of anger, grief, or fear? How do we apply this calm, present awareness when our inner world is on fire? Our journey now takes us into the heart of these emotional storms, to learn how to meet them not with resistance, but with the spacious and compassionate wisdom we have been cultivating. The path of mindfulness is not a promise of a life free from difficulty. The rains will still fall, the winds will still blow, and the storms of the human heart will inevitably gather. We will all experience anger, fear, grief, and jealousy. To be human is to feel these things. A spiritual practice that denies or seeks to surgically remove these parts of our experience is a practice based on illusion. The way of Zen is not to build a fortress to keep the storms out, but to learn how to be the calm, unshakable eye within the storm. It is not about never feeling anger, but about changing our fundamental relationship with anger. It is about learning to meet our most difficult emotions not with fear and resistance, but with a spacious, courageous, and compassionate presence. The first and most crucial step in this process is to understand the difference between an emotion and the story we tell about it. At its core, an emotion is simply raw, physical energy moving through the body. Anger might manifest as a surge of heat rising in the chest and face, a clenching in the jaw, a tingling in the hands. Fear might be a cold, contracting sensation in the pit of the stomach, a quickening of the breath, a trembling in the limbs. Grief can feel like a heavy, crushing weight on the shoulders and chest. This is what the Buddha called the first arrow. It is the direct, unavoidable, physical, and energetic reality of the emotion. It is uncomfortable, but in itself, it is just a passing energetic event, as impersonal as a change in the weather. Our suffering, however, rarely comes from this first arrow alone. Our suffering is almost always fueled by the second arrow, which is the story our mind immediately shoots into the original wound. The moment the heat of anger arises, the mind weaves a narrative. This is an outrage. I have been disrespected. That person is wrong, and I am right. The story is one of blame, righteousness, and justification. The moment the cold grip of fear appears, the mind projects a catastrophic future. Something terrible is going to happen. I won't be able to handle it. I am in danger. The story is one of impending doom. These stories are the fuel that turns a fleeting spark of emotion into a raging, long-lasting forest fire of suffering. We become trapped not by the raw energy of the feeling, but by the hypnotic power of the narrative we believe about it. To work skillfully with our emotions, we must learn to intercept that second arrow. We need a clear, practical method for stepping out of the story and back into the wisdom of the body and the present moment. The contemporary Buddhist teacher Tara Brach has synthesized ancient teachings into a beautiful and accessible practice for this, which she calls RAIN. RAIN is an acronym for a four-step process that can serve as a lifeline in the midst of an emotional storm. The R stands for recognize. This is the first step of waking up. It is the simple, gentle acknowledgement of what is happening. When a wave of emotion washes over you, you mentally whisper, "Ah, this is anger," or "fear is present," or "this is grief." This simple act of naming is profoundly powerful. It immediately creates a sliver of space between you, the one who is aware, and the emotion itself. Instead of being completely consumed by the anger, you are now the one who recognizes the anger. You have shifted from being the storm to being the sky that observes the storm. The A stands for allow. This is perhaps the most radical and counterintuitive step. Our lifelong habit is to do the exact opposite. We resist, we suppress, we distract, we numb. We fight a war against our own feelings. Allowing means we consciously stop the war. We give the emotion permission to be there. You might say to yourself, "This is allowed to be here for now. I can make space for this." This does not mean you like the feeling or want it to stay forever. It is a simple recognition of reality. The feeling is already here. To fight it is to add tension to tension, to add suffering to pain. When you stop pulling in the tug of war against your own emotion, the struggle ceases, and a space of ease can begin to emerge. The I stands for investigate. This is not a heady, analytical investigation into why you are feeling this way. It is a gentle, embodied, and curious exploration of what the emotion actually feels like. You bring your attention out of the story in your head and into the sensations in your body. You ask with a kind, scientific curiosity, where is this anger living in my body right now? What is its texture? Is it hot or cold? Is it vibrating or is it solid and heavy? Does it have a color or a shape? You are meeting the emotion on its own terms, as pure energy, before the mind has labeled and judged it. You are exploring the first arrow directly. What often happens when an emotion is met with this kind of curious, non-judgmental attention is that it begins to soften, change, and flow. It has received the attention it was craving, and its grip begins to loosen. Finally, the N stands for nurture. This is the application of compassion to the wound. After you have recognized, allowed, and investigated the emotion, you can ask yourself, what does this hurting place inside me need right now? Recognize that beneath the hard shell of anger or the icy grip of fear, there is a vulnerable part of you. Nurture means offering a gesture of kindness to that part. You might gently place a hand over your heart. You might silently offer yourself words of comfort, such as, "May I be held in compassion," or, "It's okay, sweetheart. I am here with you." You are learning to become your own loving parent, offering the tenderness and care to your own pain that you would naturally offer to a loved one. This act of self-compassion is not selfish. It is the essential ingredient that allows for true healing. There is a simple metaphor that can help us remember this practice. Think of your awareness as a spacious house, and you are the host. Your emotions are guests who arrive at your door. Our usual tendency, when an unpleasant guest like anger or fear comes knocking, is to pretend we are not home, to barricade the door, or to shout at them to go away. But they don't leave. They just bang louder or camp out on our lawn, draining our energy. The practice of rain is the art of compassionate hospitality. You hear the knock, you open the door, recognize, you step aside and let the guest in. Allow. You offer them a seat and ask, what brings you here? What do you need? Investigate. And you sit with them, offering your quiet, compassionate presence until they feel heard. Nurture. When a guest, even a difficult one, feels truly welcomed and listened to, they will not overstay their welcome. They will eventually finish their tea, stand up, and leave of their own accord, often leaving a gift of wisdom behind. The power of this unconditional presence is illustrated in the story of the Buddha and the ruthless murderer, Angulimala. Angulimala was a terrifying figure who wore a garland made from the fingers of his victims. He was the embodiment of pure, unbridled rage. One day, the Buddha walked calmly into the forest where Angulimala lived. Seeing him, Angulimala began to run, intending to kill him. Yet, despite running as fast as he could not catch the Buddha, who was only walking at a normal pace. Exasperated, Angulimala screamed, "Stop, monk!" The Buddha turned and said, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not," he explained. "I have stopped harming living beings. You have not." In that moment, faced with the Buddha's absolute lack of fear and his immense, unshakable compassion, the entire structure of Angulimala's rage collapsed. It could find no purchase, no fuel in the Buddha's presence. He threw down his sword and was transformed. Angulimala is a symbol for our own most violent and terrifying inner states or deepest rage, our most primal fear. We try to fight this part of ourselves or run from it. The Buddha represents the power of mindful, compassionate awareness. He did not fight Angulimala. He met him, he allowed him to be there, and he held him in a space of fearless, loving presence. This is what we learn to do for ourselves through the practice of rain. We learn to be the Buddha to our own Angulimala. When we can meet our own inner demons with this quality of kind attention, we rob them of their power. They stop running, and they can finally be at peace. When you practice holding your own pain with this kind of tenderness and courage, a beautiful alchemy begins to take place. The compassion you cultivate for your own vulnerability naturally begins to flow outwards. You start to look at others with new eyes. When you see anger in another person, you no longer see a monster. You see their own suffering, their own unmet needs. When you see fear in another, you recognize it as the same fear that visits your own heart. The hard walls of separation between my pain and your pain begin to dissolve. The compassion you have learned to offer yourself becomes the foundation for a deep and genuine compassion for all beings. This is the path of karuna, and it is the natural blooming of a heart that has learned to befriend itself. The journey inward does not end with the self. In fact, the deeper we go into our own being, the more we discover that the self is not a fortress, but a gateway. As we learn to meet our own difficult emotions, our inner Angulimalas with the fearless presence of the Buddha, a profound shift occurs. The act of offering kindness to our own vulnerability, the nurture in the rain practice, is the planting of a powerful seed. When this seed of self-compassion is watered with consistent practice, it inevitably blossoms outwards into a boundless compassion for others. This is the natural unfolding of the heart. It is called karuna in the Buddhist tradition, and it is more than just a feeling. It is the active, open-hearted response to the suffering we see in the world, a response born from the clear, seeing that we are not separate. The foundation of genuine compassion is the simple, powerful realization that the inner struggle you have observed in yourself is also happening in everyone else. When you have watched your own mind leap from anxiety to regret, when you have felt the sting of your own inner critic, you gain a secret insight. You begin to understand that the irritable person in the grocery line is not simply a jerk. They are a human being imprisoned by their own storm of thoughts. The colleague who seems arrogant and defensive is likely protecting a fragile and insecure ego, just as you sometimes do. The driver who cuts you off in traffic is not a personal enemy. They are a person lost in their own world of stress and urgency, completely unaware of their own actions. This insight fundamentally changes our perspective. It moves us from a position of judgment to one of curious compassion. The reactive thought, "What is wrong with that person?" is replaced by the compassionate inquiry, "I wonder what suffering is causing them to act this way." We begin to see that most of the harmful and thoughtless actions in the world are not born from pure evil, but from this deep, pervasive ignorance. The ignorance is the mistaken belief that I am my thoughts. When someone is completely identified with their angry thoughts, they become anger. When they are fused with their fearful thoughts, they become fear. Seeing this, we can no longer hold them in simple contempt. We see their confinement, their struggle, and the compassionate heart naturally stirs. To actively cultivate this open-heartedness, we can engage in the formal practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation. While zazen is the training of attention, metta is the training of the heart. It is a systematic method for developing our capacity for goodwill and unconditional love. The practice traditionally unfolds in stages. It begins with ourselves. This is the most crucial and often the most difficult step. We cannot offer a thirsty person a drink from an empty cup. We must first fill our own well. Sitting quietly, you bring yourself to mind and you silently repeat phrases of kindness, offering them to yourself with sincerity. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease. At first, the inner critic might object, but you persist gently, treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. This is the radical act of befriending yourself. Next, you bring to mind a loved one, someone for whom you feel easy and natural affection. It could be a family member, a close friend, or even a pet. Holding their image in your mind's eye, you extend the same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. You allow your heart's natural warmth to flow towards them. Then, you widen the circle to include a neutral person, someone you see often but have no strong feelings about, like a barista or a coworker. You offer them the same heartfelt wishes, training your heart to care beyond the boundaries of personal preference. The most transformative stage is to then bring to mind a difficult person, someone with whom you have conflict or resentment. As best you can, you offer them the same phrases. May you be safe. May you be healthy. This is not about condoning their actions or forcing forgiveness. It is a practice for your own heart. It is about recognizing their humanity, understanding that their harmful actions come from their own suffering, and liberating yourself from the corrosive prison of your own anger and resentment. Finally, you radiate these wishes outwards in all directions, to all beings everywhere, without exception, friends, enemies, humans, animals, all living things. May all beings be well. This practice, over time, softens the heart and dissolves the armor of separation. It is vital to understand that this compassion, this karuna, is fundamentally different from pity. Pity creates distance. It is a downward glance from a position of imagined strength. Pity says, "Oh, you poor thing, I am glad I am not you. It reinforces the separation between a strong me and a weak other. Compassion, on the other hand, is a feeling of resonance. It is born from the wisdom of non-self and emptiness. It recognizes the shared nature of our existence. It says, I know this feeling. Your suffering is not foreign to me. It closes the distance. It is a feeling with, not a feeling for. It is the heart's response to seeing a reflection of itself in another. Furthermore, true compassion is not a passive, sentimental feeling. It is an active, engaged energy. It is a verb. It manifests in our lives through our speech and our actions. It is the patience we show when someone is struggling. It is the willingness to truly listen without interrupting. It is the courage to speak a difficult truth with kindness. It is the simple gesture of helping someone who has stumbled. Compassion in action is the lived expression of our interconnectedness. There is a famous Zen story that masterfully illustrates the difference between genuine, active compassion and a mind caught in judgmental thoughts. Two Zen monks, one old and one young, were on a long pilgrimage. They came to a river that was swollen and rapid from recent rains. On the bank stood a beautiful young woman in fine silk robes, hesitating and afraid to cross for fear of ruining her clothes and being swept away. The monastic vows were extremely strict. A monk was forbidden from touching a woman. The young monk, mindful of the rules, stood back, averted his gaze, and prepared to cross alone. The old monk, however, looked at the woman, saw her predicament, and without a word, walked over to her. He hoisted her onto his shoulders, strode through the powerful current, and set her down gently on the opposite bank. She bowed in gratitude, and he simply nodded. The two monks then continued their journey in silence. For the next several hours, the young monk was in a state of inner turmoil. His mind was a storm of judgment and indignation. How could he have done that? He fumed to himself. He broke our most sacred vows. He is impure. He has disgraced our order. He replayed the scene over and over, his anger and righteousness growing with each step. Finally, as evening approached, he could bear it no longer. He stopped and confronted the old monk. Master, I must speak. I am deeply troubled. Our rules clearly forbid us from making physical contact with women, yet you picked up that woman and carried her across the river. How could you do such a thing? The old monk looked at his young companion. His eyes filled not with guilt, but with a gentle surprise. He smiled softly and said, "Oh, the woman by the river? I left her on the bank hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" This story is a profound teaching on compassion. The old monk embodied karuna. He saw a being in need, and he responded directly, spontaneously, and effectively. His action was clean, free from attachment, and rooted in the present moment. Once the action was complete, his mind was empty of it. He was not carrying the burden of his good deed. The young monk, on the other hand, represents the mind trapped in concepts, rules, and judgments. He may have followed the letter of the law, but his mind was filled with the impurity of anger and resentment for hours. He was the one who was truly carrying the woman, burdened by the heavy weight of his own unexamined thoughts. True compassion is light, free, and responsive. A mind lost in judgment is a heavy, self-inflicted burden. When we learn to offer compassion to ourselves, we become the old monk to our own inner turmoil. When we extend that compassion to others, we see their needs clearly, free from the fog of our own judgments. This compassionate presence transforms how we engage with the world, most especially in our relationships. The failure of the young monk was not just a failure of compassion. It was a failure to listen to the reality of the situation in front of him. He was listening only to the loud story in his own head. This brings us to the next essential practice: how to bring this spacious, compassionate awareness into our interactions with others through the art of deep listening. Having learned to hold our own inner world with compassion, we naturally begin to look outward with new eyes. The practice of karuna, or compassion, finds its most immediate and potent expression in the quality of our relationships. It is in our day-to-day interactions with partners, family, friends, and colleagues that the fruits of our inner work are truly tested. So much of human conflict and loneliness stems from a simple, tragic failure, the failure to truly listen. We spend our lives talking past one another, locked in the prisons of our own perspectives. Zen offers a powerful antidote to this isolation. It teaches us that deep listening is a profound form of meditation, an act of compassion that has the power to heal relationships and dissolve the walls of separation. To understand deep listening, we must first honestly examine what usually passes for listening in our conversations. For most of us, it is not truly listening at all. It is a form of waiting. We are waiting for our turn to speak. While the other person is talking, our mind is furiously at work. We are formulating our counter-argument, preparing our brilliant piece of advice, or searching our memory for a similar story of our own to share. Our attention is not on them, it is on ourselves. We hear their words through a thick filter of our own biases, judgments, and past experiences. We hear what we expect them to say, rather than what they are actually saying. We are so busy with the chatter in our own head that we miss the subtle nuances of their tone, the emotion in their eyes, the vulnerability hidden just beneath the surface of their words. The result is that the other person, even if we can repeat their words back to them, does not feel heard. They feel unheard, unseen, and fundamentally alone, even in our presence. This is the root of so much misunderstanding and disconnection. Deep listening, or compassionate listening, is a radical departure from this habit. It is the practice of offering another human being the rare and precious gift of your full, undivided, and non-judgmental attention. It is a form of meditation where the object of your focus is not your own breath, but the presence of another. The single, guiding intention is to create a space so safe and so accepting that the other person feels free to empty their heart. This does not require you to be a brilliant conversationalist or a wise therapist. It only requires your presence. The practice of deep listening is an active one. It begins with a conscious choice to silence your own inner monologue. You temporarily suspend your own need to be right, to give advice, or to tell your own story. Your only job is to receive. You listen with your ears, but also with your eyes and your heart. You notice their body language. You hear the emotional tone beneath their words. Is there sadness behind their anger, or fear behind their bravado? You are listening not just to the facts being presented, but to the feeling being expressed. Often, the most important communication is happening in the spaces between the words, in what is left unsaid. A crucial aspect of this practice is letting go of the urge to fix the other person's problems. This can be very difficult, as our desire to help often comes from a good place. But offering unsolicited advice can subtly invalidate the other person's feelings. It implies that their problem is simple and that they are incapable of solving it themselves. Deep listening operates on a deeper trust. It trusts that the act of being fully heard is, in itself, profoundly healing. It trusts that most people have their own answers within them. They just need a silent, supportive space to be able to hear them. By simply being a compassionate witness, you empower them to find their own wisdom. Of course, as you practice this, your own mind will not simply go silent. This is where your personal mindfulness practice becomes essential. While you are listening, you will get triggered. The other person might say something that sparks a feeling of defensiveness, anger, or judgment in you. You might feel a surge of your own painful memories. The practice is to notice these reactions as they arise within you. You can mentally note, there is defensiveness, or judgment is here. You see it as another cloud passing through your own sky, but you do not have to act on it. You do not have to blurt out the defensive comment. You do not have to let the judgmental expression cross your face. You see the reaction, you allow it to be there, and you gently return your full attention to the other person. This act of self-regulation is a profound gift of maturity and kindness. You are breaking the cycle of unconscious reactivity that so often poisons our interactions. When it is your turn to speak, you do so with the same quality of mindfulness. Deep listening's natural partner is what is known in Zen as loving speech. This is not about being overly sweet or inauthentic. It is about speaking with an intention to communicate clearly and kindly. It means asking yourself before you speak, is what I am about to say true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? Is this the right time and place for this conversation? Loving speech is not about avoiding conflict. It is about engaging in necessary conflict with a spirit of respect and a desire for mutual understanding, rather than a desire to win or to wound. It is the recognition that your words have the power to either build bridges or erect walls. Consider a modern parable. A couple finds themselves trapped in the same painful argument over and over again. It is a familiar, destructive dance. They interrupt each other, their voices get louder, they bring up grievances from years past, and they each end up feeling more wounded and misunderstood than before. One day, in a moment of shared desperation, they agree to try a different way. They find a timer. They agree that one person will speak for 5 minutes, and during that time, the other person's only job is to listen. They are not allowed to interrupt, to sigh, to rebut, or to even defend themselves. They must simply provide a silent, listening presence. After 5 minutes, they switch roles. The first time they try this, it feels awkward and incredibly difficult. The person listening is bursting with things to say, their mind screaming with counter-arguments, but they hold to the agreement. And slowly, something begins to shift. The speaker, knowing they have an uninterrupted space, finds they don't need to shout to be heard. Their tone softens. They begin to speak from a deeper, more vulnerable place, expressing the hurt and fear beneath their anger. The listener, freed from the constant pressure to formulate their own defense, actually begins to hear their partner's pain, perhaps for the first time. They are not hearing an attack. They are hearing a cry for help. The dynamic changes from a battle between two adversaries into a shared exploration of a mutual problem. They may not solve the issue in that one conversation, but they stop adding new wounds to the old ones. They have created a small, sacred space where connection is once again possible. This simple practice embodies the spirit of Zen in our relationships. It is a structured way to practice deep listening and loving speech, even in the heart of a conflict. It demonstrates that the most powerful way to change a relationship is not to try and change the other person, but to change the quality of our own presence. By offering the simple, powerful gift of our full, non-judgmental attention, we create the conditions for understanding and healing to arise naturally. We learn that peace in relationships does not come from always agreeing, but from the shared willingness to listen deeply, even when we disagree. We have now seen how the practice of mindfulness can transform our relationship with our own thoughts, our own difficult emotions, and our interactions with others. We are learning to observe these phenomena without being completely consumed by them. This raises a crucial question. What is the source of this deep-seated need to be right, to defend, to win arguments, to feel slighted and insecure? Our investigation must now turn to the central character in all of our personal dramas, the master storyteller, the architect of our prison of self. we must look directly at the ego. How do we relate to this powerful force, not as an enemy to be annihilated, but as a misunderstood part of ourselves that needs to be met with wisdom and compassion? Our journey inward has led us to confront our thoughts, our emotions, and the dynamics of our relationships. In each exploration, we have found a common thread, a central character who seems to be at the heart of all our dramas, the source of our need to be right, to defend our position, and to feel secure. This character is the ego. In many spiritual traditions, the ego is depicted as the ultimate villain, an enemy to be fought, starved, and ultimately annihilated. The Zen perspective, however, offers a more nuanced, compassionate, and ultimately more practical approach. It suggests that the ego is not an enemy to be slain, but a ghost to be seen through, a servant who has mistaken itself for the master. The path to freedom is not through war with the ego, but through wisdom. First, we must understand what the ego is. From a functional standpoint, the ego is simply our sense of self. It is the psychological construct of me. It is the story we tell ourselves about who we are, woven from our name, our memories, our roles in life, parent, worker, artist or beliefs, our accomplishments, and our perceived failures. A healthy, functional ego is absolutely necessary to navigate the world. We need it to remember our address, to apply for a job, to recognize our friends. It is the vehicle that allows our unique personality to move through life. The problem is not that we have a vehicle. The problem is that we have come to believe that we are the vehicle. We have fused our entire sense of being with this mental story. This is where the ego becomes a source of immense suffering. When we are completely identified with this constructed self, it becomes incredibly fragile. It is, after all, just a collection of thoughts and memories, and it instinctively knows it is not the whole picture. This deep-seated insecurity drives all of its characteristic behaviors. It lives in a state of constant comparison, forever measuring itself against other egos. Am I smarter? Am I more successful? Am I more attractive? Am I more spiritual? This endless internal ranking is the fertile soil in which jealousy, pride, and low self-esteem grow. The ego also lives in a state of perpetual defense. Because it is just a story, it feels existentially threatened by criticism or disagreement. When someone challenges our opinion, the ego perceives it not as a different point of view, but as an attack on its very being. This is why arguments become so heated and personal. We are not defending a fact. We are defending our sense of self. Furthermore, the fragile ego is a bottomless pit of need. It constantly seeks validation from the outside world to confirm its own reality. It craves praise, likes, promotions, and agreement. It needs others to mirror back its importance because it has no inherent sense of its own worth. It takes everything personally, interpreting neutral events as being fundamentally about me. It is the source of all grievance, the internal voice that nurses old wounds and feels perpetually misunderstood or victimized. The ego, when we are identified with it, is the tyrannical king of our inner world, and its kingdom is one of perpetual anxiety, conflict, and drama. The Zen approach to this tyranny is not a frontal assault. To fight the ego is to give it exactly what it wants: an enemy, a battle, a confirmation of its own importance. Fighting the ego is just the ego playing another one of its games. The way of wisdom is to do something far more subtle and powerful, to simply observe it. We use the light of mindful awareness, not as a weapon, but as a lamp in a dark room. We begin to watch the ego's antics with a kind of detached, scientific curiosity, perhaps even with a sense of humor. You are in a conversation, and you notice the powerful urge to share a story that makes you look good. Instead of just blurting it out, you take a mental step back and note, Ah, there is the ego, wanting to inflate itself. You feel a flush of anger when someone cuts in line. You observe, there is the ego, feeling personally slighted and demanding justice. You feel a wave of intense pleasure from a compliment. You see, there is the ego, getting its favorite food praise. In this simple act of noticing, a separation occurs. You are no longer the actor lost in the play. You are the audience member watching the character on stage. You are no longer the ego. You are the spacious awareness that sees the ego. Each time you do this, you withdraw your belief from the ego's story. You are taking the wind out of its sails. It doesn't need to be killed. It simply begins to wither from a lack of attention and belief. The ultimate goal of this practice is a great reversal of roles in our inner kingdom. The ego is demoted from its position as the tyrannical king. It becomes a servant, the silent, peaceful, ever-present awareness that we have been cultivating the skies, recognized as the true, legitimate ruler. When the ego serves awareness, it becomes a wonderfully useful tool. We can still use it to plan our day, to express our personality, to communicate our needs, but we are no longer fused with it. We wear it lightly, like a set of clothes appropriate for a particular task, but we never forget that our true nature is the vast, naked awareness underneath. When our sense of being is no longer derived from this fragile construct, but is rooted in the unshakable ground of awareness itself, the ego's frantic need to defend and aggrandize itself simply relaxes. It can finally be at peace because it no longer has the impossible job of trying to be who we are. The great Zen poet and hermit Ryokan is a perfect embodiment of a life lived with a transparent ego. Ryokan lived in a simple hut at the base of a mountain, his life a testament to profound simplicity. One evening, a thief broke into his hut. The thief searched everywhere, but was dismayed to find there was absolutely nothing of value to steal. Ryokan, who had been watching the thief, sat up and said, "You have come a very long way to visit me. It would be a shame for you to leave empty-handed." Ryokan then took off his own well-worn robes, the only possession he had left. "Please," he said, "accept these as a gift." The thief, utterly bewildered, snatched the robes and fled into the night. Ryokan then sat naked in the cool air, watching the luminous full moon. He felt not anger or loss, but a deep compassion for the thief. A thought came to him, and he later wrote a famous poem that captured it. "The thief left it behind the moon at my window." In his heart, he thought, "Poor fellow, I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." This story is a stunning portrait of a mind where the ego holds almost no sway. Ryokan did not have the thought, "I have been robbed. I am a victim." His sense of self was not attached to his possessions or his circumstances. His ego was so quiet that his only response was one of pure, open-hearted compassion. He felt pity for the thief's poverty, a poverty so deep that he couldn't see the real treasure that was freely available to all the beautiful moon. Ryokan's identity was not in his clothes or his status as a hermit. His identity was with the moon itself, vast, silent, luminous, and untouchable. It represents the awareness that cannot be stolen or diminished by any of life's events. Ryokan's profound peace comes from a mind that is not caught in the ego's primary activity, which is time travel. The ego lives almost exclusively in the past, replaying grievances and cherishing old glories, or in the future, constructing elaborate scenarios of hope and fear. It is almost never here, now. It avoids the present moment because in the simple, raw reality of the now, the ego's stories lose their power. In the direct sensory experience of this moment, the ego, which is a collection of thoughts, finds no solid ground to stand on. To truly free ourselves from the tyranny of the ego, we must learn to inhabit the one domain where it cannot survive, We must learn to anchor ourselves in the power and the peace of the present moment. Our exploration of the ego has revealed it to be a master storyteller, a character who thrives on drama and defines itself through a narrative of its own past and future. The ego is a time traveler. Its entire existence is predicated on the psychological concepts of past and future. It nurses the grievances of yesterday and spins anxious fantasies about tomorrow. The one place the ego cannot survive, the one dimension where its stories lose all power, is the simple, vibrant reality of the present moment. This is why the practice of returning to the now is not just a relaxation technique. It is the master key that unlocks the prison of the ego and reveals a state of being that is free from suffering. We must first investigate our own experience of time. We believe so implicitly in the reality of past and future that we rarely stop to question them. But where, exactly, is the past? Can you visit it? Can you hold it in your hand? You cannot. The past exists now only as a memory trace in your mind, a thought that is arising in this present moment. When you are lost in the past, the mental activity of remembering is happening right now. The past itself is gone forever. It has no power over you, except for the power you give it by focusing on its memory in the only moment that is real, the now. Likewise, where is the future? It is a mental projection, a concept, a thought about what might be, and that thought, too, is happening only in the now. You will never arrive in the future. When tomorrow comes, it will arrive as another now. Your entire life has been, and will always be, an unbroken series of present moments. This is not a complex philosophy. It is the most obvious, yet most overlooked, fact of our existence. Once we see this, we can understand the location of all our psychological suffering. It exists only when we resist or ignore the present moment. Think of any form of psychological pain. Anxiety, stress, tension, and worry are all future-oriented. They are caused by projecting a negative scenario into the future and then living in that imaginary scenario as if it were real. The feared event is not happening now, but we are suffering from it now. This is the insanity of a mind lost in future time. On the other hand, regret, guilt, resentment, grievance, and sadness are all past-oriented. They are caused by mentally replaying an event from the past, wishing it had been different, and resisting the fact that it happened. The event is over, but we keep it alive in our minds and continue to suffer from it now. The present moment itself is never the source of this kind of inner turmoil. A situation in the present moment may be challenging, difficult, or painful, but the psychological suffering about the situation, the anxiety, the grievances, always generated by the mind's escape into past or future. The key to freedom, then, is to learn how to withdraw our attention from the time-traveling mind and anchor it firmly in the reality of the now. How do we do this? The mind is the time machine, but the body is the anchor to the present. The body and our senses can only exist in this moment. They are our portal out of the conceptual world of thought and into the living reality of being. You can try this right now. For a moment, pause. Look around you and notice one color, perhaps the blue of the sky or the green of a leaf. Just see the color, without the mental label blue or green. Simply allow the raw sensory data of that color to fill your awareness. Now, listen. What can you hear? Not just the obvious sounds, but the subtle ones. The hum of electronics, the distant sound of traffic, the rhythm of your own breathing. Let these sounds wash through you without judgment. Finally, feel the points of contact between your body and the surface it is resting on. Feel the temperature of the air on your skin. Feel the subtle aliveness, the inner energy field of your hands. This direct engagement with your senses is the gateway to the now. Anytime you feel yourself lost in anxious thought or past regret, you can use this simple practice. Bring your attention to your breath, to a sound, to a sensation in your body. This act immediately pulls you out of the illusory world of psychological time and into the real world. The ego will protest. It will tell you that the present moment is boring. It will say, nothing is happening. I need to think, to plan, to figure things out. The ego finds the now boring because in the simple sensory reality of the present, there is no drama for it to feed on. There is no story of me and my problems. But the truth is the exact opposite of what the ego tells us. It is our thinking about life that is often boring, repetitive, and dull. The present moment, when we are truly in it, is endlessly vibrant and alive. The intricate patterns on a leaf, the way light reflects off a surface, the complex symphony of sounds in a quiet room. These things are miraculous when we give them our full attention. All true creativity, all flashes of intuition, all deep peace arise not from the noise of thinking, but from the still, spacious awareness of the present moment. Let us revisit the story of the man on the cliff edge with this deeper understanding. The ravenous tiger above him is the past, with all its traumas and regrets relentlessly pursuing him. The dark abyss below him is the future, a terrifying unknown filled with all his fears and what-ifs. The two mice, one white and one black, gnawing at his vine are psychological time, the constant inner voice telling him, "You're running out of time, you have to do something." The man is completely trapped in the drama of time. He is a prisoner of his past and future. And then he sees the wild strawberry. The strawberry is the present moment. It is the only thing that is actually real. It exists outside the story of the tiger and the abyss. His act of picking and eating that strawberry is an act of radical presence. In that moment, he completely withdraws his attention and his belief from the past and the future. He anchors himself fully in the direct, sensory reality of tasting the strawberry. And in that moment of total presence, where is the fear? Where is the suffering? It is gone. There is only the sweet, vibrant aliveness of the now. This is a portrait of enlightenment. It is not that the tiger and the abyss have disappeared. They are still part of his life situation. But he has discovered a deeper dimension within himself, the timeless dimension of presence, where the problems created by psychological time have no power over him. He has found freedom not by changing his situation, but by changing his state of consciousness. Living in this way, anchored in the now, is the ultimate antidote to the ego. It frees us from the heavy burden of our personal history and our anxieties about the future. It allows us to meet each moment with a sense of openness and wonder, because we are not filtering it through the deadening screen of our past judgments. A mind that is habitually present is a mind that is clear, receptive, and fresh. It is able to see the world not as it thinks it is, but as it actually is. This quality of fresh, open-minded seeing is a celebrated virtue in Zen. It is called Shoshin, or beginner's mind. It is the key that unlocks not only our inner peace, but also our capacity for true learning, creativity, and joy. Our journey now leads us to explore how we can consciously cultivate this remarkable quality in our daily lives. By anchoring ourselves in the present moment, we begin to loosen the grip of the ego and its obsessive storytelling about the past and future. A mind that is truly present is, by its nature, a mind that is fresh, open, and unburdened by the stale conclusions of yesterday. This quality of fresh perception is not just a pleasant side effect of mindfulness. It is a core virtue in Zen practice, celebrated and cultivated as Shoshin, or beginner's mind. The great Zen master Shunryu Suzuki famously said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few." This simple statement holds the key not only to a deeper spiritual practice, but also to a life of continuous learning, genuine connection, and boundless creativity. To understand beginner's mind, we must first examine its opposite, the expert's mind. The expert's mind is the mind that has already arrived at a conclusion. It says, "I know this." It is a mind full of facts, opinions, judgments, and past experiences. While expertise is valuable in many practical fields, a mind that is perpetually in expert mode becomes a prison. It filters all new information through the grid of its existing knowledge. It sees only what it expects to see. It mistakes its internal map for the external territory. The expert mind is like a full cup. Nothing new can be poured into it. We see this all around us. The seasoned business leader who dismisses a novel idea because that's not how we do things here. The spouse in a decades-long marriage who believes they know everything there is to know about their partner, and in so doing, stop seeing the person who is actually in front of them today. The artist who becomes so successful with one style that they lose the courage to experiment, and their work becomes a sterile repetition of past glories. The expert's mind is safe, it is certain, but it is also a stagnant pond, closed off from the fresh, flowing river of reality. Beginner's mind, or shoshin, is the radical act of emptying our cup in every moment. It is the willingness to look at the world with the eyes of a child, for whom everything is new and miraculous. It is an attitude of openness, eagerness, curiosity, and a complete lack of preconceptions. To cultivate beginner's mind is to let go of our need to be the one who knows, and to embrace the humble, powerful position of not knowing. This is not the same as ignorance. Ignorance is a closed state. Not knowing is a state of active, intelligent openness, a recognition that reality is always vaster and more mysterious than our concepts about it. The expert's mind wants to label and categorize everything. The beginner's mind wants to experience everything directly. It replaces the statement, "I know what this is," with the profound question, "What is this?" This is not an abstract philosophical stance. It is a practical skill we can cultivate in our daily lives. We can begin by consciously challenging our own assumptions. Ask the stupid questions at work. Inquire into why things are done a certain way. Be willing to be the one who doesn't have the immediate answer. In your relationships, make a conscious effort to listen to a loved one with the intention of discovering something you didn't know about them, rather than listening just to confirm what you already believe. When you drink your morning coffee, instead of being lost in thought, take one moment to actually taste it as if for the first time. Feel its warmth, smell its aroma. This is the practice of shoshin. Another powerful technique is to deliberately break your routine. Take a different route to work. Eat lunch in a new spot. Try brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. These simple acts can jolt the mind out of its habitual, expert ruts and remind it that there is always another way to see and experience the world. The connection between beginner's mind and creativity is deep and direct. We often think of creativity as a mysterious gift, the ability to pull a brilliant idea out of thin air. But creativity is more often the act of seeing new and surprising connections between things that already exist. The expert's mind, trapped in its rigid categories and well-worn neural pathways, is incapable of seeing these fresh connections. It can only see the patterns it has seen before. It is the beginner's mind, precisely because it is not bound by the rules or the right way of doing things, that can be playful and fluid. It can connect two seemingly unrelated ideas to create a breakthrough innovation. It can look at a familiar problem from a completely new angle and find an elegant solution. All true art, all genuine scientific discovery, all insightful problem solving is born from this space of open, curious, not knowing. The creative genius is very often the person who has cultivated the discipline of forgetting what they know, allowing them to see the world with the fresh eyes of a beginner. Consider the traditional training of a Zen calligrapher. For years, the student practices drawing the same character, the same single brushstroke, over and over again, thousands of times. An outside observer might assume the goal is to become a perfect technician, an expert in the mechanics of the brush. But the inner purpose of this relentless practice is precisely the opposite. The student practices the technique so intensely that it becomes second nature, so deeply embedded in the muscles and nerves that the conscious, thinking, expert mind is no longer needed to execute it. The greatest works of Zen calligraphy are not created when the artist is carefully thinking, now I must apply this much pressure, and now I must turn the brush. They are created in a flash of spontaneity, in a state of mushin or no mind. In that moment, the artist's cup is empty. Years of practice have given them the freedom to forget the technique. Their body knows the form, freeing their spirit to be completely present and spontaneous. The ink flows not from a calculating mind, but from an empty, open, beginner's mind. This reveals a profound paradox. True mastery is not the accumulation of expertise, but the return to a highly disciplined and refined state of beginner's mind. A great athlete in the zone is not thinking about the mechanics of their swing. A great musician lost in a performance is not consciously thinking about the notes. A great chef creating a new dish is operating from a place of deep intuition and feel. In their moments of peak performance, they are not experts. They are beginners, fully present, open, and responsive to the reality of the moment. They have practiced so long and so hard that they have earned the right to forget, to let go, and to allow a deeper wisdom to flow through them. Cultivating Shoshin allows us to meet our lives with a sense of wonder and creativity. It turns the mundane into the sacred and opens us up to the endless novelty of existence. But life does not only present us with opportunities for creative problem-solving or artistic expression. Life also, inevitably, presents us with circumstances of profound pain, circumstances that we cannot change, fix, or creatively circumvent. We are faced with the diagnosis of a serious illness, the heartbreaking end of a relationship, the death of a loved one. In these moments, a beginner's mind is not enough. Faced with the raw, unavoidable pain of existence, we are called to cultivate an even deeper quality of heart and mind. How does the wisdom of Zen guide us when we are standing before the unmovable mountains of life's sorrows? Our journey now must turn towards the difficult and essential terrain of acceptance and the art of letting go. To live with a beginner's mind is to meet the world with openness and wonder. This practice serves us well in moments of creativity, learning, and connection. But life, in its boundless and unflinching reality, will eventually present us with experiences that we cannot creatively solve, that we cannot approach with playful curiosity. Life will present us with pain. It will bring the diagnosis of a serious illness, the unexpected end of a cherished relationship, the heartbreaking finality of death. These are the moments that test the depth of our spiritual practice, not by asking us to be happy, but by asking if we can be present and open-hearted in the face of profound, unavoidable sorrow. The wisdom of Zen does not offer an escape from this pain. Instead, it offers a path to move through it with grace, courage, and without adding unnecessary layers of suffering on top of it. To walk this path, we must first understand a fundamental equation of the human mind. Suffering equals pain, multiplied by resistance. Let us define these terms clearly. Pain is an inevitable part of the human condition. It is the raw, direct experience of loss, sickness, or injury. When a loved one dies, the searing pain of grief is natural and unavoidable. When we experience failure, The sting of disappointment is real. This is what is sometimes called the first arrow. It is the clean pain of life itself. There is no shame in it and no escaping it. Suffering, however, is the second arrow. It is the arrow we shoot into ourselves. Suffering is the vast, tangled, and exhausting story our mind weaves around the initial pain. It is our resistance to reality. It is the thought, this shouldn't be happening. It is the endless questioning of, why me? It is the blame, the denial, the anger at the universe, the desperate struggle against what already is. The initial pain of the first arrow may be sharp, but it is the prolonged, self-inflicted torment of the second arrow of resistance that creates the deep, chronic suffering that can define a life. The goal of our practice is not to become immune to the first arrow. It is to learn how to stop shooting ourselves with the second. The antidote to resistance is acceptance. This is perhaps one of the most misunderstood words in any spiritual vocabulary. Acceptance is not passivity. It is not resignation or giving up. It does not mean that you like the situation or that you approve of it. It does not mean you shouldn't work to change a harmful situation if change is possible. Acceptance is simply the courageous and profoundly sane act of acknowledging reality as it is in this moment, without argument. It is the dropping of the internal war with what is. It is looking at the truth squarely and clearly and saying a quiet, internal yes to the fact that this is happening. The relationship has ended. The diagnosis has been given. This person is gone. This non-resistance is not a position of weakness. It is a position of immense strength. It frees up all the psychic energy we were wasting on fighting an unwinnable war against the past and allows us to meet the present moment with all of our resources intact. From this ground of acceptance, the process of letting go can begin. Letting go is also widely misunderstood. It does not mean forgetting. It does not mean that you no longer love the person you have lost. It does not mean you pretend the pain didn't happen. Letting go means releasing your fierce, white-knuckled grip on a reality that is different from the one you have. You let go of your attachment to a different past, the endless mental reruns of what you should have done. You let go of your attachment to a different present, the painful fantasy of the life you think you should be living. Most importantly, you let go of the stories of blame and victimhood that the ego loves to create around the pain. It is like holding a burning coal in your hand. The coal is the initial pain. The clenching of your fist around it, refusing to drop it, is your resistance and attachment. That clenching is what causes the deep burn. Letting go is the simple, difficult act of opening your hand. The memory of the burn may remain, but you are no longer actively harming yourself. When we create this space of acceptance, we allow the pain itself to transform. Difficult emotions like grief are not static blocks of misery. They are energetic processes that need to move. When we resist grief, we freeze it. We lock the storm inside us, where its pressure builds to an unbearable degree. To accept grief is to allow the storm clouds to rain. It means giving yourself permission to feel the raw energy of the sadness, the anger, the confusion, without judgment. When we can sit with this energy, as we learn to do with the rain practice, it naturally moves, changes, and flows through us. It is by fully entering our sorrow that we can eventually pass through it. The only way out is through. The ancient Buddhist story of Kisa Gotami is a masterful teaching on this process. Kisa Gotami was a young woman in the time of the Buddha, and her only infant son had died. She was so consumed by grief that she lost her sanity. Clinging to the small, lifeless body, she wandered through her village, going from door to door, desperately begging for medicine that could bring her child back to life. Some mocked her, others pitied her, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man told her to go and see the Buddha. She rushed to the Buddha, laid her son at his feet, and pleaded with him for a cure. The Buddha looked at her with immense compassion and said, "I can make the medicine you seek, but first, you must bring me one special ingredient. I need a single mustard seed from a house where no child, no spouse, no parent, no servanthas ever died." Filled with a sudden, desperate hope, Kisa Gotami began her search. She went to the first house and asked, "Can you spare me a mustard seed for a medicine from the Buddha?" "Of course," the family said. "But tell me," she asked, "has anyone in this house ever known death?" The family looked at her sadly. "The living are few, but the dead are many. We lost our grandfather just last year." She went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was the same everywhere. Every family had a mustard seed, but every family had been touched by death. As evening fell, Kisa Gotami sat exhausted by the side of the road, the whole village behind her. She watched as the lamps in the houses were lit, flickering for a time, and then one by one, being extinguished into the darkness. In that quiet moment, watching the lights, she understood. The Buddha's medicine was not for her son, it was for her. She realized that death was not a unique curse that had befallen only her. It was a universal law of existence, a shared and unavoidable part of being alive. Her personal, isolated, and egoic grief. Why has this happened to me? Dissolved into a vast, compassionate understanding of the sorrow of all beings. In that moment of profound acceptance, her healing began. Kisa Gotami's journey is our journey. We all begin by resisting the painful reality of our losses. The Buddha's great wisdom was in not giving her a lecture on impermanence, but in sending her on a path of direct discovery. He allowed her to experience the universal truth for herself. This is the healing power of acceptance. It shifts us from the lonely prison of personal suffering into the spacious, shared landscape of human experience. It allows us to see that our pain, while unique in its details, is universal in its essence. The courage to face life's great and unavoidable sorrows with this kind of acceptance is a cornerstone of a mature spiritual life. It frees us from the exhausting and futile war with reality. The same principles of seeing clearly and letting go of our resistance can also be applied to the more subtle, chronic, and pervasive forms of suffering in our modern world. One of the most powerful of these is the restless, unending pursuit of happiness through things. The belief that our inner peace depends on our external circumstances. Our journey now turns from the great sorrows of life to this quiet but persistent source of modern discontent, the ideology of materialism. Having learned to face the great, unavoidable sorrows of life with acceptance, we now turn our attention to a more subtle yet pervasive form of suffering, one that we actively create and perpetuate in our daily lives. This is the suffering that arises from the modern gospel of materialism, the deeply ingrained belief that our inner well-being can be purchased, that happiness, contentment, and self-worth are products we can acquire. We are taught from birth that more is better. A bigger house, a faster car, a newer phone. We are conditioned to be in a state of constant, restless wanting. The wisdom of Zen offers a radical alternative. It suggests that true wealth is not found in the accumulation of possessions, but in the liberation from the need to accumulate. It is the discovery of the profound richness of a simple life. At the heart of materialism is the psychological engine of desire, what Buddhism calls tanha, which translates as thirst or craving. This is the insistent, gnawing feeling that something is missing, that if we could just obtain that one more thing, we would finally be complete, finally be happy. This is the great illusion that powers our consumer culture. We fixate on a Gola promotion, a new gadget, a luxury vacation. We dedicate our energy to achieving it, believing it holds the key to our contentment. And when we finally get it, there is indeed a fleeting moment of pleasure, a temporary high. But then, something insidious happens. It is a process psychologists call hedonic adaptation. The new thing quickly becomes the new normal. The pleasure fades, and the mind, the insatiable monkey mind, immediately identifies the next thing that is now required for our happiness. We are placed on a perpetual treadmill, running faster and faster, but never arriving at the destination of lasting peace. This cycle is a perfect formula for chronic dissatisfaction. Zen practice invites us to step off this treadmill entirely by fundamentally redefining wealth. Our society defines wealth as having much. Zen defines wealth as needing little. True richness is not in the size of your bank account, but in the spaciousness of your mind. A person with immense financial assets, who is consumed by the anxiety of losing it, or by the craving for even more, is, from this perspective, living in a state of deep spiritual poverty. Their mind is a cramped and fearful place, a mind of constant lack. Conversely, a person of simple means who feels a genuine sense of sufficiency, who is content with what they have, is truly wealthy. Their mind is a mind of abundance, of ease, of freedom. They possess a treasure that no market crash can devalue and no thief can steal: inner peace. This is not a call for a forced, grim asceticism or a romanticization of poverty. It is a call for a conscious and joyful practice of simplicity. It is the application of mindfulness to our relationship with the material world. This practice begins, as all Zen practice does, with the mind. It is the simple act of observing the arising of desire without immediately believing its story or acting on its impulse. When the thought, "I need that new phone," appears, we can learn to see it not as a command, but as just another thought, another empty boat drifting through our awareness. We can ask with gentle curiosity, what is the feeling underneath this desire? Am I feeling bored, insecure, or lonely? Am I hoping this purchase will fill an inner void? By simply observing the desire instead of being its slave, we break the spell of unconscious consumption. This inner practice naturally blossoms into an outer simplicity. We begin to look at our lives and our possessions with new eyes. The act of decluttering our homes can become a profound spiritual practice. As we pick up each object, we can mindfully ask, does this item truly nourish my life? Does it provide genuine utility or joy? Or is it a burden from the past, an echo of a person I no longer am? Letting go of the physical clutter that weighs us down, the clothes we never wear, the gadgets we never use, the books we will never read, can create a startling and wonderful sense of lightness and space in our mind. Our outer world becomes a reflection of our inner clarity. This extends to how we acquire new things. Before making a purchase, we can cultivate the habit of a mindful pause. We can ask, is this a genuine need, or is it a momentary want fueled by advertising or social pressure? Will this truly add value to my life, or will it just become more future clutter? This pause is the space where wisdom can enter, freeing us from the endless cycle of earning and spending. When we are no longer frantically chasing the next external thing to make us happy, a beautiful recalibration occurs. Our senses, previously dulled by the constant pursuit of more, begin to reawaken to the profound and freely available joys that surround us in every moment. We discover that the source of happiness was never in the expensive object, but in the quality of our attention. The simple meal of bread and soup, when eaten with full presence, can be more deeply satisfying than a feast at a fancy restaurant eaten in a state of distraction. The richness of a deep, uninterrupted conversation with a friend is a treasure that no amount of money can buy. The feeling of the warm sun on your skin, the sight of the moon in the night sky, the sound of rain falling outside your window, these are the inexhaustible riches of the universe, offered freely to anyone who has the presence of mind to receive them. There is a story often told in Zen circles about a wealthy and powerful government official who was a patron of a local temple. This official had everything a person could desire: grand estate, luxurious clothing, the finest foods, and a host of servants to cater to his every whim. Yet, he was a man plagued by worry. He fretted constantly about his business dealings, his political rivals, and the security of his immense fortune. His nights were sleepless, and his days were filled with anxiety. Seeking relief, he went to visit the Zen master, who lived at the temple he sponsored. He found the master living in a tiny, bare room attached to the temple hall. The master's only possessions were a single spare robe, a wooden begging bowl, a sleeping mat, and a handful of books. He owned nothing, yet he moved with an unmistakable lightness. His eyes were clear, and his laughter was deep and frequent. The official was completely baffled. "Master," he said, "I do not understand. I have everything a man could possibly want, and I am miserable. You have nothing, and you seem to be the most contented man I have ever met. What is your secret?" The master smiled, and instead of answering directly, he poured the official a cup of tea. As he handed it to him, he said simply, "When you drink this tea, just drink the tea." The official looked confused. The master continued, "The only secret is this: when I am drinking tea, the whole universe is in this cup. I have everything I need. Your problem, sir, is that when you are drinking tea, you are thinking about the 10,000 things you do not have." This simple exchange illuminates the vast difference between outer riches and inner wealth. The official's mind was a mind of lack, constantly focused on what was missing, what needed to be protected, what could be lost. The master's mind was a mind of abundance, completely fulfilled by the simple reality of the present moment. The path to this inner wealth is through the practice of simplicity. It is about renouncing not the world, but the craving mind that is never satisfied with the world as it is. It is the discovery that freedom is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. To walk this path of simplicity in a world that constantly bombards us with messages of instant gratification and endless acquisition requires a particular strength of character. It requires us to cultivate the capacity to wait, to be still, to be content with the pace of our own lives rather than the frantic pace of consumer culture. It requires us to develop a deep and abiding patience. When we are no longer restlessly seeking fulfillment from the outside, we can finally learn to sit with ourselves and be at peace. We can learn to embody the unwavering, quiet strength and patience of a mountain. Having embraced the path of simplicity, we create a space in our lives that is less cluttered, less rushed, and less driven by the frantic engine of wanting. This spaciousness allows a quieter, deeper quality of mind to emerge, a quality that is almost entirely antithetical to the culture of our modern world. This is the quality of patience. In a world that worships speed, that promises instant gratification and next-day delivery on all our desires, patience can seem like a passive and outdated virtue. But from the Zen perspective, patience is not a weak or passive waiting. It is an active, courageous, and deeply wise state of being. It is the conscious choice to align ourselves with the natural, unhurried rhythm of life, rather than demanding that life conform to our own impatient timetable. It is the quiet strength that allows true growth to unfold. The modern world is afflicted with a deep-seated disease of haste. Our technology has trained us to expect immediate results. We get frustrated when a web page takes more than 3 seconds to load. We feel agitated when we have to wait in line. We want our problems solved, our questions answered, and our desires fulfilled right now. This conditioning has a profound psychological cost. It creates a constant, low-grade agitation and frustration, as the messy, unpredictable reality of life rarely lives up to our demand for instant perfection. This cult of speed makes us shallow in our endeavors, quick to abandon any project, relationship, or practice that does not yield immediate results. It makes us intolerant of our own process and deeply impatient with the perceived failings of others. We are like amateur gardeners, constantly digging up our seeds to see if they have sprouted yet, and in so doing, we ensure that they never will. The primary training ground, the dojo for cultivating its opposite, is the simple act of sitting meditation. Zazen is a masterclass in patience. You sit down on the cushion with the best of intentions. Within minutes, the mind rebels. The impulse to get up feels overwhelming. Your body begins to ache. A profound sense of boredom or restlessness descends. Every fiber of your being screams, "Do something. This is a waste of time." This discomfort is the resistance training for the muscle of patience. Your practice is simply to stay. You notice the powerful urge to flee, to check your phone, to do anything other than sit in this quiet stillness. You observe this urge as you would observe any other thought or sensation. You feel its energy, you watch it peak, and you watch it eventually pass without having acted on it. Each moment that you can sit with this discomfort, you are fundamentally rewiring your brain. You are teaching yourself at the most profound level that you do not have to be a slave to every impulse that arises in your mind. You are cultivating the strength to simply be. A powerful metaphor for this practice is to learn to sit like a mountain in your meditation and in your life. You can embody the qualities of a great mountain. The mountain is utterly stable, grounded, solid, and still. Its fundamental nature does not change, regardless of what happens on its surface. The weather on the mountain is in constant flux. One day, the sun shines brightly, and everything is warm and clear. These are our pleasant thoughts and happy moods. The next day, a violent thunderstorm crashes around its peaks, with thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. This is our anger, our rage, our fear. On other days, a thick fog descends, and there is only confusion and uncertainty. Sometimes, a gentle rain of sadness falls, or a blizzard of overwhelming thoughts buries everything. The mountain's wisdom lies in its attitude towards this ever-changing weather. The mountain does not try to push away the storm or cling to the sunshine. It does not get angry at the rain or fearful of the blizzard. It simply sits in immense, silent dignity, allowing the weather to be what it is. It lets the clouds come and go. It allows the rain to fall and the sun to shine, all without its core stillness being fundamentally disturbed. The weather happens to the mountain, but it is not the mountain. In our practice, we learn to embody this mountain-like presence. We sit with the ever-changing weather of our own mind-sour thoughts, emotions, and sensations and allow them to arise and pass without being shaken from our seat of awareness. We are the mountain, not the fleeting weather. This profound patience, cultivated on the cushion, naturally begins to infuse our daily life. We become more patient with ourselves. The spiritual path is long, and we often get frustrated with our own perceived lack of progress. We want to be free from anger by next week, and to be enlightened by the end of the year. The patience of a mountain reminds us that growth is slow, organic, and often invisible. We must learn to be as patient with our own unfolding as a wise gardener is with a tree, trusting that if we provide the right conditions, the water of consistent practice, the sunlight of kind attention growth will happen in its own time. This patience then extends to others. When we truly understand the slow, difficult, and non-linear nature of our own journey, we can be far more generous and patient with the people in our lives. We see that their sharp words, their thoughtless actions, their annoying habits are all part of their own slow and difficult struggle. We are less likely to react with instant anger or judgment, and more likely to offer a space of quiet understanding. We give them the same gift we are learning to give ourselves, the time and the space to grow. There is a beautiful parable that illustrates the nature of this patient, trust-filled effort. It is the story of the Chinese bamboo tree. A farmer plants a bamboo seed in the ground. He waters it, fertilizes it, and protects it. In the first year, nothing appears above the soil. The second year, he continues to water and care for the seed, and still, nothing happens. The third year, the fourth year the same. His neighbors might mock him, thinking him a fool for tending to a barren patch of earth. An impatient person would have long since given up, but the farmer persists. Then, in the fifth year, a tiny bamboo shoot finally breaks through the ground, and in a period of just 6 weeks, it grows to an astonishing height of over 80 feet. The question is, did the tree grow 80 feet in 6 weeks? The answer is no. It grew for 5 years. For 4 of those years, while nothing was visible on the surface, a vast and intricate root system was spreading deep within the earth. It was this powerful, unseen foundation that made its spectacular and rapid upward growth possible. Our spiritual practice is precisely like growing this bamboo tree. For a long time, sometimes for years, it can feel as if nothing is happening. We sit on our cushion, we try to be mindful, but we still feel anxious, we still get angry, we still feel lost in thought. It can be easy to get discouraged and think the practice is not working, but the parable of the bamboo reminds us that the most important growth is often happening beneath the surface. We are developing our root system. We are strengthening our capacity for attention, for equanimity, for compassion. We are building the foundation. The outer results, the sudden insights, the newfound ability to handle a crisis with grace will appear in their own time, when the roots are strong enough to support them. Our task is simply to have the patience to keep watering the seed. This story, and the practice of patience it extols, points us toward a central and profound paradox in the Zen path. It highlights the necessity of a consistent, patient, efforter form of discipline. The word discipline often conjures images of rigidity, punishment, and a lack of freedom. We think of freedom as the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want. But Zen turns this idea on its head. It suggests that true freedom is not found by following every whim and impulse, but is actually the fruit of a patient and consistent discipline. Our journey now leads us to explore this powerful and liberating paradox, how the commitment to a disciplined practice can be the very key that unlocks our inner freedom. Our exploration has shown that the path to inner peace requires both simplicity and a deep, abiding patience. We must be willing to let go of our frantic seeking and to trust in the slow, organic unfolding of our own growth. This points us toward the necessity of a consistent, patient effort, a quality we might call discipline. Yet, in our modern culture, the words discipline and freedom seem to be polar opposites. Discipline conjures images of restriction, rigidity, and the denial of our impulses. Freedom, we believe, is the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want, to follow our every whim. The Zen path presents us with a profound paradox that turns this conventional wisdom on its head. It teaches that it is precisely through a gentle, consistent, and loving discipline that we find the gateway to true and lasting freedom. Let us first examine the popular notion of freedom. To be free, we are told, is to be unconstrained, to follow our feelings, to act on our desires. But is this really freedom? Let us look closer. The person who says, "I will eat whatever I want," and proceeds to eat an entire cake is not free. They are a slave to their craving. The person who says, "I will say whatever I feel," and erupts in anger at the slightest provocation is not free. They are a slave to their own reactive patterns. The person who says, "I will work only when I feel inspired," and spends their days in procrastination is not free. They are a slave to their own resistance and fear. This so-called freedom is often just slavery to our own unconscious conditioning. It is the freedom of a boat without a rudder, tossed about by every changing wind and current of impulse, habit, and emotion. It is a life lived at the mercy of forces we do not understand and cannot control. Zen offers a different definition of freedom. True freedom is not freedom to indulge our every whim, but freedom from the inner tyranny of those whims. It is freedom from the compulsive chatter of the monkey mind. It is freedom from being jerked around by every wave of emotion that passes through us. It is the liberation from our own automatic reactions. The ultimate freedom is the freedom to choose our response. In any given situation, there is a space between the stimulus, what happens to you, and our response. For most people, that space is infinitesimally small. An insult is met with immediate anger. A craving is met with immediate indulgence. The practice of Zen is the practice of widening that space. In that space lies our power to choose. The unfree person is compelled by their conditioning. The free person, in that moment of spacious awareness, can choose to respond with wisdom, with compassion, with patience, instead of with blind reactivity. This is the only freedom that truly matters. How then do we cultivate this freedom? We do so through the steady application of a gentle discipline. This is not the harsh, punitive discipline of a drill sergeant, but the dedicated, loving discipline of a musician learning to play an instrument. The primary form of this discipline is the daily practice of zazen, of sitting meditation. The commitment to sit on the cushion every day for even just 10 or 15 minutes, whether we feel like it or not, is in itself a revolutionary act of freedom. It is a declaration that our commitment to our own well-being is more important than the transient mood of the moment. We are choosing to be free from the dictatorship of our own feelings of boredom, restlessness, or lethargy. This disciplined act of sitting creates a stable container, a safe laboratory in which we can observe the chaos of our own minds without being swept away by it. The discipline of the daily practice provides the sturdy riverbanks that allow the wild, powerful river of the mind to flow without causing a destructive flood. Within this container, we practice the discipline of mindfulness, the moment-to-moment commitment to return our attention again and again from the world of thought to the reality of the present. Each time we notice our mind has wandered and we gently guide it back to the breath, we are performing a single rep in the gym of freedom. We are weakening the chains of unconscious habit and strengthening the muscle of conscious awareness. This leads us to the heart of the paradox. True, joyful spontaneity is not the product of chaos, but the fruit of discipline. A child banging randomly on a piano is not free. They are limited by their lack of skill. They can only produce noise. A master pianist, however, who has spent thousands of hours in the disciplined practice of scales, chords, and theory, can sit down and improvise a piece of music that is breathtaking in its freedom, creativity, and beauty. The discipline has not made them rigid. It has become so deeply a part of them that it has been absorbed, transcended, allowing for a freedom of expression that is both spontaneous and infused with wisdom and skill. The discipline is the soil from which the flower of spontaneous, beautiful action can grow. This principle is perhaps most purely embodied in the traditional path of Budo, the Japanese martial arts. A student of a discipline like Kendo or Karate begins by practicing the same basic stance, the same block, the same punch, thousands upon thousands of times. The training is repetitive, demanding, and requires immense discipline. The goal of this endless repetition is not to create a predictable, robotic fighter, The goal is to embed the movements so deeply into the body's intelligence that the slow, clumsy, thinking mind is no longer necessary in a moment of crisis. In a real confrontation, there is no time to think, my opponent is punching, therefore, I should raise my left arm to block. The disciplined martial artist's body simply moves, reacting instantly, perfectly, and spontaneously with a wisdom that is faster than thought. Their discipline has not constrained them, it has liberated them. It has freed them from the prison of their own slow, analytical mind, allowing them to become one with the present moment. This state of effortless, spontaneous action born from deep discipline is known as mushin, or no mind. It is the state of a being who is radically free. Our lives are our martial arts dojo. The difficult conversations, the unexpected setbacks, the moments of high stress, these are our sparring partners. The daily, disciplined practice of zazen and mindfulness is our fundamental training, our kata. We sit with our own discomfort on the cushion so that when life throws a punch at us, we can meet it with a balanced, centered, and wise response, rather than with clumsy and thought-driven reactivity. The discipline of our practice forges us into a different kind of person, one who is no longer a slave to their own inner chaos. We are free because we have trained ourselves, patiently and consistently, for freedom. This disciplined mind, forged in the fires of patient practice and cooled in the waters of compassion, becomes capable of undertaking the most advanced and challenging practices of the Zen path. Having learned to quiet the incessant chatter of the rational mind, a deeper, more intuitive faculty of knowing begins to awaken. This mind has the stability and courage to confront questions that logic alone cannot answer, to face paradoxes that would shatter a less grounded consciousness. This prepares us for a unique, powerful, and mysterious tool used in some Zen traditions. A tool designed to break down the final barriers of conceptual thought and precipitate a direct experience of reality. Our journey now takes us into the enigmatic world of the koan. The path of Zen, through its patient and consistent discipline, forges a mind that is stable, clear, and spacious. It teaches us to quiet the incessant chatter of our surface thoughts and to rest in the silent awareness that lies beneath. This stable mind, no longer a slave to its own reactivity, becomes capable of undertaking one of the most unique, powerful, and mysterious forms of spiritual inquiry ever devised. It is a practice designed not to soothe the mind, but to break it open. It is the practice of the koan. A koan, a term from Japanese Zen, is a paradoxical statement, a bizarre question, or a short, enigmatic dialogue between a master and a student. It is not a riddle to be solved or a puzzle to be figured out. It is a spiritual hand grenade tossed into the fortress of the conceptual mind with the sole intention of blowing its walls to pieces. The koan is utterly impenetrable to logic. It is designed to short-circuit the rational, discriminating intellect, thereby forcing the practitioner into a deeper, more intuitive way of knowing. Consider some of the most famous koans. A monk once asked the great master Joshu, "Does a dog have Buddha, nature?" A profound question, as Mahayana Buddhism teaches that all beings possess the potential for enlightenment. Joshu's answer was a single, explosive syllable, mu, which literally means no or not, but here functions as a verbal scalpel to cut through conceptual thought. Another well-known koan from Master Hakuin is, "You know the sound of two hands clapping. What is the sound of one hand?" And perhaps one of the most personal and profound is the question, before your parents were born, what was your original face? If you try to approach these questions with your intellect, you will be immediately trapped. What is the sound of one hand? The mind scrambles for an answer. Is it a whooshing sound? Is it the sound of silence? Is it a philosophical idea about non-duality? All of these are products of thought. They are clever ideas about the koan, They are not the living reality of the koan itself. What was your original face before your parents were born? The mind might think of genetics, of a spiritual pre-existence, of an embryo. Again, these are all concepts based in time, form, and identity, the very things the koan is designed to help you see beyond. The traditional practice of koan study is an intense and deeply personal process undertaken with a Zen master. The student is given a single koan, perhaps mu, and is instructed to pour their entire being into it. They must hold the question constantly in their awareness, while sitting in zazen, while eating, while working, while trying to sleep. The koan must become the one great question of their life. The student then has regular private interviews with the master, called dokusan or sanzen, where they present their understanding. The master's role is to act as an unbreachable wall. They will reject every single intellectual, philosophical, or clever answer the student brings. The student might say, mu means that the dog is empty of a fixed self. The master will strike a small bell, dismissing them. They might say, mu is the great mystery of being. The bell rings again. This process can go on for months or even years. It is designed to create a state of profound spiritual tension, what is called the great doubt. The purpose of this intense, focused frustration is to corner the rational mind, to lead it to a place where all of its usual tricks, analysis, reason, conceptualization are utterly useless. It is like pushing a muscle to the point of complete failure. The student wrestles with the koan until their intellect is exhausted, until it gives up, until it admits its own powerlessness. In that moment of complete surrender, when the chattering, problem-solving mind finally stops, a space opens up, and into that silent, open space, a flash of direct, intuitive understanding can arise. This is called kensho, which means seeing one's true nature. It is a direct glimpse of reality, unmediated by thought or concept. The student has not solved the koan. They have become the answer. Their response to the master might now be a sudden shout, a laugh, or a simple gesture, not an explanation, but a direct expression of their awakened insight. The master, seeing the authenticity of this lived experience, will then confirm it and may assign a new koan to deepen the student's understanding. Let's look again at what is the sound of one hand. The koan is not asking for a description of a sound. It is a question that points you toward the source of both sound and silence. It is asking you to experience the undivided reality that exists before our mind splits the world into dualities, like two hands and one hand, sound and silence, subject and object. It is a direct pointer to the sky-like awareness itself, the silent witness of all phenomena. The only answer is to realize that you are that silent, witnessing presence. Similarly, what was your original face before your parents were born is a direct pointer. It asks you to strip away everything that is not essentially you, your name, your body, your history, your personality, and to experience directly what remains. What is your nature prior to all form and all concepts? Again, it points to the timeless, formless awareness that is your true identity. While formal koan study is a unique practice within certain schools of Zen, the truth is that life itself presents us with koans every day. A life koan is any situation that brings our logical, problem-solving mind to a screeching halt. It might be a devastating diagnosis, a profound ethical dilemma, a relationship that is both painful and impossible to leave. It is any situation where we are utterly stuck, where all of our usual strategies of thinking, planning, and worrying have completely failed. We have no idea what to do. The Zen approach is to treat this life situation just as a monk would treat a formal koan. Instead of frantically trying to figure it out, which only creates more anxiety, we learn to sit with the great doubt of the situation. We hold the question in our hearts. We live with the discomfort of not knowing. We allow the paradox and the pain to be there without demanding an immediate solution. And often, when we stop struggling, when we let go of the need for an intellectual answer, a different kind of wisdom emerges. The answer comes not as a new thought, but as a shift in perspective, an intuitive leap, an act of radical acceptance, or a path of compassionate action that arises from a place deeper than our intellect. We discover the solution by becoming one with the problem. The koan, whether formal or from life, is a powerful and sacred tool. It is the final solvent, designed to dissolve the last and most stubborn illusion of them all, the belief that reality is something that can be neatly captured, understood, and controlled by the thinking mind. It is a direct and sometimes shocking invitation to let go of our concepts and fall into the arms of direct, unmediated experience. This breakthrough into a non-conceptual way of knowing is a profound awakening, but it is not the end of the journey. In Zen, the great flashes of insight are not an escape from the world, but a preparation for a deeper, more intimate engagement with it. What happens after the prison walls of the mind have been shattered? What does life look like after this great awakening? Our journey now takes us to its final and perhaps most important destination, the understanding of enlightenment as a simple, humble, and compassionate return to the ordinary world. Our journey has taken us through the intricate pathways of the mind, from the restless chatter of the monkey mind to the profound, silent expanse of emptiness. We have explored discipline, compassion, and the mind-shattering paradox of the koan. All of these paths lead toward a single, luminous peak, a word that is shrouded in myth and misunderstanding: enlightenment. We imagine the enlightened being as a superhuman, floating on a cloud in a state of perpetual bliss, immune to all human pain and turmoil. But Zen, in its characteristically direct and down-to-earth way, pulls this fantasy back to the ground. It teaches us that true awakening is not an escape from our humanity, but a complete and total arrival into it. Enlightenment is not about becoming someone else. It is about finally, truly becoming ourselves. The first step is to discard the romantic and ego-driven myths. Enlightenment will not give you the ability to read minds or levitate. It will not grant you a life free from sadness, anger, or pain. The enlightened person still stubs their toe, and it still hurts. They still feel sorrow at the loss of a loved one. They still feel the energy of anger arise when they witness injustice. The fundamental difference lies not in the absence of these experiences, but in one's relationship to them. The unenlightened mind is immediately swept away by the emotion, identifying with it completely and weaving a dramatic story of me and my suffering around it. The enlightened mind, however, recognizes the emotion as simply impersonal energy, a passing weather pattern in the vast sky of awareness. It feels the heat of anger without becoming the angry story. It feels the weight of sadness without becoming the tragic victim. The pain is experienced cleanly, without the secondary layer of self-inflicted suffering. This leads us to the most famous and perhaps most profound Zen dictum on the nature of awakening. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. On the surface, nothing changes. The awakened person does not abandon their daily responsibilities to sit on a mountaintop. They still cook meals, pay bills, and take out the trash. The transformation is entirely internal. It is a radical shift in the quality of consciousness with which these simple acts are performed. Before enlightenment, when we chop wood, our body may be performing the action, but our mind is 1,000 miles away. We are lost in thoughts about the past, anxieties about the future, or daydreams about a different life. The act of chopping wood is a means to an end, a chore to be completed on the way to something else. There is a fundamental split between our mind and our body, between ourselves and the present moment. After enlightenment, when we chop wood, we just chop wood. Our entire being or mind, our body, our synthesis, fully present for the act. We feel the weight of the axe, we smell the scent of the wood, we hear the sharp crack as it splits. The simple, ordinary act becomes a moving meditation, a joyful expression of our total aliveness. The sacred is not found in a distant heaven, but is discovered in the heart of the ordinary. The great aha moment of insight, the glimpse of one's true nature known as Kensho, is not the end of the path. It is, in many ways, the true beginning. The real work, the work of a lifetime, is the integration of that insight into the messy, complicated, and beautiful reality of our everyday lives. It is one thing to feel like the vast, open sky while sitting peacefully on a meditation cushion. It is another thing entirely to remember that you are the sky while you are stuck in a traffic jam, while you are dealing with a difficult colleague, while your child is having a tantrum, or while you are facing a frightening medical diagnosis. The practice becomes about closing the gap between our meditation self and our daily life self, until there is no longer any separation. We learn to live with a constant background awareness of our true nature as the silent container for all of life's experiences, the good and the bad, the pleasant and the unpleasant. This is why enlightenment cannot be seen as a final destination, a graduation certificate that, once attained, is ours forever. The ego loves the idea of a final goal, an ultimate achievement. But Zen is a path, not a destination. The goal of the path is walking the path. The goal is to be fully awake and present for this step, for this breath, for this moment. In this sense, enlightenment is not a distant, future state. Every moment that you are mindfully aware is a moment of enlightenment. Every time you are able to catch a reactive thought and choose a compassionate response instead, you are living your awakening. It is a continuous process of returning over and over again to the truth of who you are. The entire arc of this journey is beautifully depicted in the 10 bulls or the 10 ox herding pictures, a classic Zen allegory. The series of 10 images shows a young herdsman on a quest to find his lost ox, which symbolizes his true nature, or the Buddha mind. At first, he searches wildly, lost and confused. Then, he discovers the footprints of the ox he encounters the teachings. After a great struggle, he perceives the ox getting his first glimpse of his true nature. He then must catch and tame the ox, which represents the long, disciplined work of taming the habitual, wandering mind. Gradually, the struggle ceases, and he is able to ride the ox home in a state of joyful harmony. But the journey doesn't end there. In the next picture, the ox has disappeared. The herdsman has realized that the self he was seeking was also just a concept, a tool, and he has let it go. This leads to the 8th picture, a perfect, empty circle. Both the self, the herdsman, and his object of seeking, the ox, have been transcended. All concepts of enlightenment and delusion, self and other, have dissolved into the profound reality of emptiness. But this is still not the end. In the 9th picture, he returns to the source. Seeing the world as it is, the trees are green, the rivers flow. And in the 10th and final picture, we see the enlightened sage, now depicted as a portly, joyful, pot-bellied figure, returning to the village and the marketplace. His robes are open, his feet are bare, and he carries a gourd of wine. He is mingling with ordinary people, his face alight with simple joy and boundless compassion. This final image is the ultimate expression of Zen's vision of enlightenment. The journey is a circle. It begins in the ordinary world, leads through the wilderness of deep spiritual practice and profound insight, and culminates in a loving and engaged return to that same ordinary world. The awakened being does not hide on a mountaintop. They bring the fruits of their realization, their peace, their wisdom, their compassion back into the heart of human society. Their great freedom is expressed in their ability to be utterly, simply, and joyfully human. Their hands are open, ready to give and to receive. This is the promise of the path. It is not about becoming a stone Buddha, but a warm-blooded, laughing Buddha. It is about learning to chop our own wood and carry our own water with the entirety of our being. It is about realizing that this very life, with all its messiness, its beauty, and its sorrow, is the sacred ground of our awakening. Our journey through the landscape of Zen has brought us from the prison of our own mind to the freedom of the village marketplace. It is now time to gather the lessons of this journey and to distill its final, empowering message. Our journey together began in the quiet desperation of a sleepless night. Trapped in the invisible prison of our own mind, we started as a prisoner, identifying with the relentless chatter of the inner voice, believing ourselves to be the storm of our own thoughts. From that place of confinement, we have walked a long and transformative path. We discovered the breath, the simple, golden thread that can lead us out of the labyrinth of thought and back into the reality of the present moment. We learned to see ourselves not as the fleeting clouds of thought and emotion, but as the vast, open, and accepting sky in which they appear. We explored the profound truths of impermanence, realizing that no thought and no feeling is final. We investigated the very nature of the thinker, only to find a selfless, flowing process, not a solid, separate entity. This led us to the liberating insight of emptiness, the understanding that nothing has the power to harm us unless we grant it that power by believing in its solidity. We learned to sit with our discomfort, to face our most difficult emotions with the courage and tenderness of a compassionate friend. We saw that this practice is not for our own benefit alone, but that it naturally blossoms into a deep compassion for all beings, who are all struggling with their own inner prisons. And finally, we arrived at the understanding that the goal of this entire journey is not to escape our ordinary lives, but to return to them with new eyes, to find the sacred in the simple act of chopping wood and carrying water. If there is one core message to take from this journey, it is this: you do not need to win a war against your mind. You only need to stop fighting. The path to freedom is not found in silencing your thoughts, but in the simple, liberating realization that you do not have to believe them. Peace is not the absence of noise, but the discovery of a profound stillness right in the heart of that noise. The key to your freedom is not held in some future accomplishment or some external circumstance. It has been with you all along. The very awareness that is hearing these words right now, the silent, knowing presence that has been the witness to every thought, every feeling, and every sensation described on this journey, that awareness is the freedom you have been seeking. It is your original face. It is the sky that is never stained by the clouds. The entire practice is simply a process of returning home to this, your true nature. It is not about becoming a different person. It is about unbecoming all the things you thought you were, all the stories you have told yourself, so that you can finally rest in the peace of who you have always been.